in Wallala, 88.3 FM. We are now 9 o'clock and time for day 3 of the 3rd annual Ocean Life Symposium. And for the next 3 hours, you are going to be hearing from several local and national ocean experts and citizen scientists who will talk about the health and future of our oceans and the life forms within them. And we will continue this for the next couple of days through to Friday. And then on Friday, we'll have a wrap hour with our co-producers who brought us this excellent conference, and that is Scott and Tree Mercer of Mindanoma Whale and Seal Study. The other hosts here today are going to be Paul Mundy, Peggy Berryhill, and myself, Leanne Lindsay. And we are going to also be supported by our team in the background. That's Roberta Chan, Jean Berry, and Scott and Tree Mercer also doing extra work today. And then our studios are located on the Pacific Ocean in the South Mendocino coastal town of Gualala, California. And the sponsors are, again, the Sea Ranch Lodge, Linden Design Gallery, Lisberg and Company Realtors, Surf Market, Anchor Bay Thai Kitchen, the Sea Ranch Supply, and CNA Metalworks. And you can listen online at kgua.org, and you can watch all the presentations live or later on YouTube. And we are live YouTube right now. And you can also sync your phone to your car. If you want to listen to it from your car, you just pull up the YouTube app and play the day that you want to listen to, or you can even cast it to your TV. It's a great way to watch this conference. And there is an interactive speaker schedule at kgua.org. Just click on schedule at the top of the page. And if you are using our Air Pocket app, which you can get in the left corner of our website, you'll see the Ocean Life interactive schedule right there on your digital device at any time. And lastly, if you have any questions for our speakers or host, please email those to oceanlifesymposium@gmail.com. That's oceanlifesymposium@gmail.com. All right, Paul, who is going to be our first speaker?
Thank you, Leanne. Our first speaker this morning is Ted Cheeseman of Happywhale. Ted tells us all about the humpback whales of the Pacific Ocean, building a knowledge in individual whales with citizen science and research collaboration. Ted is the co-founder of the Marine Mammal Research Collaboration and Citizen Science Platform and owner of Cheeseman Ecology Safaris. Ted, welcome to our symposium.
Hey, thank you. Thank you.
Cheers. And have a great presentation. We'll see you later.
Okay, great. Well, lovely. I'm super delighted to start here. Let's see, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so as to get started. See if I can do this all happily. My screen being shared. I think I shared the wrong screen. Sorry. Try that again. Okay, and play the Zoom talk. Okay, are you seeing 2 slides or are you seeing 1 slide?
We're seeing the 4 slides that you have up, Ted.
Okay, great, good. That the starting slide here, right? I just need to get that off of the screen. Okay, all good?
All good.
Okay. Thank you. Lovely. Well, I think I'll say that I'm pretty tired of Zoom presentations here because I'd really love to see the audience. But assuming that folks are out here listening and enjoying and can see some of these images, I'd like to tell you guys about humpback whales of the Pacific Ocean and my interactions with them. I think I'm going to assume that a lot of folks listening now are pretty familiar with whales in general, humpbacks in particular, since they're probably our most visible large cetacean. But just this wee little bit of background, the individual humpback whales are identifiable by the undersides of their tails, their flukes. And as you see here in this handful of photos, they have distinct patterns, distinct shapes. Not every individual is so distinct as this set, but every individual is identifiable, much like a fingerprint or a face. And this is, for me, in the midst of a PhD working on movement patterns and populations in the North Pacific and South Pacific. This has been a really fantastic thing to work on because I've got basically 50 years of history to build upon. This photo ID images have been collected for 50 years by a wide range of researchers. But this massive data set that exists has become very fragmented over years where over the last, 15 years ago, there was a project in the North Pacific that brought a lot of images together, and there's been various other individual efforts, but mostly this data has been collected by regional studies and not brought together. So what I've done in my PhD work and before that was built automated image recognition, as I shouldn't say we, a small team of us, built automated image recognition to take these tails and instead of manually matching, looking at each one to the next one to try to determine, hey, do we know this whale? Is this the same whale we've seen before? Is this a new whale? Instead of manually matching them, we've brought it together in a web-based system to be able to automate image recognition. So this has been really exciting. And the talk that I'm giving here is more or less what I would have intended to give next month in the Society for Marine Mammals conference that would have been held over in Florida. It's now been postponed to August. So I'll give the slightly less sciencey version of that. And last Marine Mammal Conference 2 years ago, I talked about this algorithm. So I'm not going to dwell too much on the algorithm itself, rather kind of what has happened since then, which is one of the fun and bigger things of this has been by virtue of automated image recognition that's been very, very accurate and sensitive. It's able to detect change such that we found many matches of, say, calves to adults, like the image on top of this slide here, a whale that was given 2 different IDs, first as a first-year calf or first summer calf, and then as the second, the photo on the top right is same whale as a juvenile. And so finding out basically a longer life history of individuals, or in the case of the couple images below, these are 2 whales that were believed to be different individuals in a catalog for 30 years. And then we found, in fact, that they're matching. This has resulted in some very, very high value detections for us. One in particular, when we have entangled whales to the whale science community and conservation science community, this is a high value question because entangled whales, they rarely fluke. You often get really poor quality fluke images if we do get images at all. And it seems that they're more likely to be juveniles that are entangled. So difficult to match, difficult to know, did that whale survive? In this case, we had an entangled whale. The whale was actually cut free. And this fluke photo on the top left there was taken during the entanglement. We were able to match that individual to the same whale as a first summer juvenile the year before, and therefore able to track and look out for this whale to see, did this animal survive? And that's a really, I think, commercially significant question as it is today. What is the long-term impact of entanglement? Does it cause a reduction of survivorship? Does it actually kill whales? Or is this just, a hazard out there, but not really a population level danger? But really what I'm doing is based on a desire to get this kind of rich information that and make it accessible. That the one study, the splash study I referred to earlier, really brought out this amazing network of migratory connections across the Pacific Ocean. This study was done 2004 to 2006. It took 18,000 encounters of humpbacks, identified them all from breeding areas to feeding areas, basically had researchers out in the field everywhere that humpbacks were known to breed or feed, and and looked at their migratory connections. So really, really powerful study. Prior to this, we generally thought that humpback whales in California probably like the gray whales. They probably were carrying on up the coast and then really feeding up in Alaska and such. Lo and behold, we have now, with that study, realized that, hey, you know, these whales along the California coast, that's entirely a separate population from those that are seen in Alaska. So, but this study was 3 years and it cost a lot. The manual matching was incredibly time intensive, and it was just in the North Pacific. And for me, so my history, you heard up at the top by way of introduction, I own a wildlife safari company, Cheeseman's Ecology Safaris. And my parents founded the company. It was really their vision that I got to grow up in. And much of my work has been in the Southern Ocean, leaving from the tip of Argentina, going up to the Falkland Islands, out to the island of South Georgia, and down to the Antarctic Peninsula. And I show this big blank empty map because that's really our knowledge and experience, or was our knowledge and experience of whales back almost 30 years ago when I started going down there. And then stepping out even more broadly, if you consider the big open Southern Ocean, which is where historically there were more whales than anywhere else on the planet. Well, what did we know about these whales? Not a lot. There's very, very little modern whale science from big stretches of this ocean. And historically, while there was some good science done during the whaling era, it was done while literally removing the entire populations from these oceans. So to me, well, this photo is from Grytviken, which was one of the largest whaling stations ever. On the island of South Georgia, and you can see here just whales lined up out to the, the first few years of whaling in Grytviken and around South Georgia, they only took whales from inside the bays of the island. Tiny island inside the bays would be like only whaling in San Francisco Bay, and if you had a few more bays like that along the coast. In our first 25 years of going to South Georgia, we did not see a single nearshore large cetacean. So when I first went to Antarctica, I showed up there, it was early 90s, 1994. So this map, this graph is the removal of cetaceans from whaling in the Southern Ocean, South Atlantic, and then the eventual and apparent present recovery of those whales. And I find it really amazing to see that these whales are in recovery because for one, we did really remove them down to almost nothing, right? So I can't really use my pointer here, but if you think about where we were at the bottom of the curve in the early 90s when population recovery was really just starting, fortunately for the great whales, for most species, they were hunted to near extinction, but not quite driven to extinction because the commercial products made from their bodies became cheaper as they became more scarce, right? Because they were being made into margarine, they were being made into dog food, fertilizer, quite low value products, and alternatives were readily being found. There was a big push into illegal whaling after global whaling bans were established. Unfortunately, this is a Russian catching vessel, and I don't mean to point my finger at Russian illegal whaling, but it really perpetuated just a little bit longer that this bottom of the curve lack of recovery of whales. So it's kind of this, I rather like the tongue-in-cheek element of this. Yes, we're fishing down the food chain, but we're also getting, quite frankly, as a society, we're kind of getting fatter and hungrier even while we're pulling off of less resources. And I think the point here, and the reason that I'm really drawn to do this kind of whale science, is because these whales are recovering into an ocean or oceans that are very different from the oceans that they were hunted out of. And I say recovering, Well, that doesn't actually apply to some great whale species here. I'm sorry for the gore, but North Atlantic humpback whale, I'm sorry, North Atlantic right whale, bad mistake there. North Atlantic right whale killed by a ship strike. There are now, we believe, something like 336 North Atlantic right whales. That's all that's left of the species, because while they were quite abundant, they were hunted down to just a few hundred. And then when the whaling stopped, well, ship strikes had become a major source of mortality. Here, ship strike on a Brutus whale, and entanglements, a major source of mortality. Here, an entanglement that eventually killed this whale. She got free. The whale was identified. We managed to match her fluke to a known whale. But the trauma of the entanglement and the starvation caused by the entanglement eventually killed her. And the oceans, I mean, basically we've urbanized these oceans with ships, with crab fisheries and other pot fisheries. And we've changed the ocean profile, the temperature profile and pH profile. And this, the blob that anyone in the North Pacific who's paid attention to oceans in the last decade will have heard about. We had this marine heat wave, 2014 to 2017, largest marine heat wave ever recorded. And it completely changed the ecosystem for a few years for whales that were trying to live and feed in the Gulf of Alaska, off British Columbia, and all of the above. So this splash study was an incredible look into the migratory patterns and populations of humpbacks in the North Pacific, but it is not at all a static situation. And so what I've been seeking is a system that has an ongoing ability to match and process data so that we can have almost effectively a real-time and full-time ongoing level of detail of what this study showed. So the happy ending here, as far as the study goes, although it's far from over, is that we've been able to bring together research collaborations enough to really fill in, in the North Pacific, have this ongoing data set, and in other oceans, fill in big blank spots. This North Pacific data set, now you can see the parallels between this and that map of the splash study. These are all the migratory connections across the entire North Pacific. The Western Pacific is certainly more data scarce. You'll notice maybe that there's not a lot of data from Japan. That's the one space in which we've had little collaboration. I'm hopeful that that will change going forward. But from Hawaii and also Russia and all parts east of there, we have basically all major data collections of humpback whales, as well as an enormous amount of citizen science contribution, in such that we've got to this place where we literally know upwards of 60% of all living humpback whales in the North Pacific. And if you look along the North American coast, it's more like 70, 80, and in some cases above 90%, like inside waters of Southeast Alaska or Monterey Bay or coastal Central America. We know over 90% of individual whales, which is proving to be a very, very powerful data set. Again, for me, looking south to these big empty spaces in the Southern Ocean, this has been a real treat and a real pleasure to fill in some of these gaps where, and quite frankly, at this point, we haven't done a lot with the data other than gather it, reconcile it. And the exciting part from here is going forward into biological understanding that we can get from it. This, the southern stretch that you see here, the little bit of data that we have from the open waters off of Antarctica, there's just not a lot out there. Those waters are very, very sort of unfriendly to research voyages in general, very expensive place to operate. And the largest whale populations in the world feed in pelagic waters or waters that are affected by ice edges and such, places that are pretty challenging to operate in. So we've been trying to gather this together and make this data available for research collaborators to basically to understand the far right end of this population recovery, because this very right tip of or the present state of the assumption would be, okay, we killed all the whales during the whaling era, but not quite enough that we removed the populations. They were able to, have a viable population when the whaling ended. And now they're recovering. So the assumption is that they would recover back to their pre-whaling state, but that assumption is dependent upon the oceans being able to support them in the way that they did prior to the whaling era, which with climate change, with ship strikes, with entanglements, is definitely not an assumption to be made without investigation. And the case in point of that, I think, is the blue whale along the California coast. We have reason to believe, based on science, in particular by Cascadia Research Collective and collaborators, that the blue whales in California are not able to reach their full recovery to pre-whaling numbers because of a rate of ship strikes. And it's ship strikes. It's pretty reasonable to say at this point, based on some modeling, that they are killing enough blue whales that they're not able to reach their full population potential. So really kind of that speaks to what I am most excited about with this work, which is, yes, I'm making population models and I'm making models of migratory patterns and such. But I think what I really love is what is able to step on from here, researchers who can take this and add in their own vision and their own experience. And so like I have here, the migratory connections from the data set of my friend and colleague, Nico Ransom, who works down in, she's a PhD student at Murdoch University in Australia and works in Sayulita, Mexico. So the whales that she photographs have been seen all around the world. And in particular, she's finding some unique patterns where whales from Russia are doing different things when they come to Mexico. This was kind of one of the data gaps in the splash study, is there was very little data from Russia. So we don't fully understand what the Russian whales are doing and why in heck would a whale from Russia migrate all the way to Mexico to breed when it's much closer to go to the Philippines, Marianas, or even Hawaii for that matter. Or another example, stepping on from there, this is actually my favorite study that this data is supporting. There's, what I've done is integrated web tech and machine learning to identify individuals. Well, another nice little piece of relatively new technology is drones, which gives incredible imagery of the whole body of a whale, right? And you can see a mother calf here in Hawaii. Well, what do you get out of this that you can't get from a photograph from the surface? You can get a body condition assessment. And this is the work of Martin Van Aswegen, Lars Beider at University of Hawaii, Manoa. Really fantastic work measuring body conditions of individual whales. So they take this overhead image and measure the width of the body up and down the whale, convert that into a total body volume and convert that into a percentage body fat assessment. And that's all fine and great and a really high value standalone product. But then by using photo ID, by saying, okay, we're following this whale with a drone, great, get a photo of the tail while it dives, and then we match that whale, then they can do body assessments over time, look at this same individual. And because we know almost all the whales in Hawaii, and many of these whales are going up to Southeast Alaska, and Martin's basically doing the same measurements up in Southeast Alaska, then we look at the same individual through the breeding season in Hawaii, and then through the feeding season in Alaska, and then back again to Hawaii with calf, without calf. What is the state of, basically wasting and then building up fat reserves in the feeding season, wasting again in the breeding season, and how is that affected by changing ocean conditions? These are the pieces of this that I find really exciting, that step off of a global and ocean basin-wide collaborative study that has gathered together long sighting histories and high resolution sighting histories of all of the individuals, or very, very increasingly near to all the individuals of these oceans. So I think with that, I'll actually wrap it up, although I may not have used all the time available to me, but I'd be delighted to take questions. And first and foremost, though, I really must say, or last but not least, this entire project has been entirely dependent on an enormous number of collaborators. There's been over 1,000 different institutions, from research collaborators to whale watch companies and so on, that have contributed data. 8,000, actually it's over 9,000 citizen scientists at this point, and quite a few research collaborators who have, in many cases, shared publicly data that has taken lifetimes to gather and display. So I can't name everyone, but here's logos and names of some major collaborators and many more who really deserve so much thanks for making this possible. So there we go. Thank you.
Just talk. Say, Teddy, can you hear me?
Hi, Ted, can you hear me?
Yes, I do.
Hi, Scott. Good to see you again.
And you, Scott. Pleasure.
I didn't know that story about the two whales from the North Atlantic catalog. Well, one whale turned out to be Tassel.
Yeah.
You described today. I knew that whale Tassel. I didn't know
cool.
It was in the catalog as two whales for 30 years. Could you describe a little bit about the software that you used to determine that? Because that one shot was sideways just about.
Yeah, so that's been a treat. So the software, okay, there's two pieces of the software. One is a information architecture that we built to house this whole thing. So if you think of that as like the hull of the ship, you know, everything from the wheel to the rudder to the hull to the sails to you know, all the pieces of it, or well, maybe not sails, and everything but the engine. And then the image recognition is effectively like the engine, right? So so we have spent now basically 6.5 years. We started building this whole thing in 2014. And gradually built up Happywhale as the original idea was, hey, let's just build a system where folks can submit their photos and we could easily receive photos and you know, work it out so that we get good quality, you know, date, location, and the photo. If we can identify the whale, build a feed-it-back mechanism so that any citizen scientist or any research collaborator could put their images in, have it in one safe archive of data, and then get feedback from that, whether it's notification emails or data reports in the case of researchers. And then hopefully, back in 2014 when we started that, the whole idea of image recognition and machine learning, these were in their relative early stages. But coming on through in 2018, in collaboration with a group called Kaggle, that was a startup that Google bought. So in collaboration basically with Google, we hosted a algorithm development competition. And this, where we put 25,000 ID'd humpback whales online in this archive, and machine learning aficionados basically tried to build algorithms. We got 2,100 submissions of proposed solutions to this, and we got to pick among the top few of these. Took the algorithm, basically refactored it and plugged it into our system so that when someone sends us a photo, it uses a modified, effectively it's modified facial recognition, and we could get into the particulars of what that is. To do that, I think what I'd like to do is anyone who's interested, you know, shoot me an email, ted@happywhale.com. I'll send you the paper. It's due to be published literally, it should have been a couple months ago, but any day now, as peer-reviewed publications go, that delves into the mechanics of it. But it's basically using effectively something like image recognition to say, okay, if you take the 60,000, actually 62,000 whales in our database, imagine them in a multi-dimensional space where all of their features are, you know, sort of a cluster, right? And then you take a new whale and you say, okay, who is this whale? Well, if it has a cluster of features that is most similar to another whale, well, the measure of the distance is essentially a measure of the accuracy or quality of that match, is effectively what it's doing. So then we can just say everything above a certain threshold is proposed to be a correct match. And yes, in the case of a highly rotated fluke like that, it's going to be a poor quality match, but it's still likely that the correct match will be the first one proposed. And that's what we found is it's been very effective. Like, we found that most manually matched catalogs have an error rate of missed whales of like 6 to 10%, which is fine, right? You can totally do science with that. This, we've managed to push that down to like 1 to 3% of missing potential matches. So we still miss matches, but just at a lower rate than the human eye does.
So Ted, this is Peggy Berryhill at KGUA in Wallala. Thank you for your wonderful presentation.
Yeah.
You know, we're all the staff here and our listeners are learning so much. We live right here at the ocean, but thanks, of course, to Scott and Tree, you know, we've learned so much, but you're one of the few people that has been learning about whales since you were a boy. Your parents started all of this. How has that changed your outlook on the world? How does that influence you being so immersed in whales?
Well, I don't get seasick anymore. Thank goodness.
Thank goodness.
As a kid, I tell you, I missed so many whales because I was just like, I'd like puke and then swallow a half of a Dramamine and then go sleep down below. And at the end of the day, I'd hear about all these great encounters. I'm like, yeah, no, I mean, it's hard to say how it's changed my life because I'm not sure what it would have been like otherwise. Mm-hmm. What is so remarkable to me is how much the oceans have changed. I mean, obviously there's, you know, we use oceans much more intensely, but when I was a kid, we did not have summer whale watching in Monterey Bay. There weren't whales in the summer here offshore. There was gray whales, right? Because they were hunted out first, they were protected first, they recovered first, right? So we would go whale watching. When I was a kid, it would be January, February, March was whale watching season, right? Not April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, which is now now whale watching season is the gray whale season is the low season. So I think that's kind of the biggest things. It's kind of this perspective of, you know, over my own lifetime, I've seen this enormous change. And yet, you know, we all set our baselines from what our first experience was. And it's really important to extend that, you know, and for those who step out into the ocean once in their life and think that's how it is, you know, no, this is a dynamic environment that, you know, it takes collaboration and communication to understand the state of our environments and thereby to kind of protect them over the lifetimes.
Well, it's almost time for our next speaker, but I want to, you know, just speaking on behalf of Paul Monday, but we both grew up in Alameda, different eras. We never, you spent a lot of time at South Shore and on the estuary and all that. We never heard anything about dolphins, or I guess Humphrey the whale. Remember when that was big news? Humphrey the whale was the first memory I have of this wayward whale that, you know, I think he went up in the Sacramento Delta area or something.
And I've been living in the San Francisco Bay Area since 1984. So I was actually, I did start doing some whale watching later on, but not right at the beginning.
Right. It's enhanced our lives. And we thank you, Happywhale, and all of our other speakers for taking us on this new journey.
We do, because not a lot of us know a lot about the oceans and the whale and the other population there. So we thank you for your presentation. And Scott, who has known you since you were that little boy, I was just wondering what you might have to say too here.
I'm not sure how much time we have left, but there was an
We have just a
interesting,
few minutes here.
there's an interesting story that I was in a conference in Provincetown, Massachusetts a few years ago when a photograph that was taken from one of the expeditions that you sponsored down in the Antarctic of a humpback whale that showed up a long ways away and actually started the competition between gray whale scientists and humpback scientists as to which species travels the furthest. Do you remember that particular story?
Well, I mean, we're debating. There's a few candidates for longest migration, you know. So but yeah, no, that's cool.
Yeah, I can't quite remember where the humpback showed up, but it blew everybody's blew everybody off their chairs when that came up. And I was sitting there and I didn't expect to hear Cheeseman Expeditions. And I
Cool.
was sitting in a conference in Provincetown.
Nice, love it. Well, speaking of those early days, okay, so I'm digging through some old slides and I came up with a humpback whale that I photographed when I was 11 years old, colt off of Jeffrey's Ledge, which may well have been out with you, Scott, and old scan. And I, well, of course I didn't know who it was. I scanned it and put it into our system. I'm like, wow, this is the first, that was my earliest ID, was when I was 11 years old, out there in the waters off of Massachusetts. So yeah, good times.
That was our trips out of Seabrook, New Hampshire with your
Yeah.
family. That was great.
Right.
So you were
Colt-
hooked, right?
Colt
Hooked
was
from then
Colt
on.
was the Crown Prince of humpback whales for quite a while.
Good times. Nice.
Well, thank you, Ted.
Hey, absolute pleasure and good work putting this all together. It's really great stuff. So.
Okay,
Well,
I'll over to
thank
you,
you.
Pam.
All right. Well, thank you, Ted, so much. And thank you, Scott, too, for pulling this Ocean Life Conference together again for the third year in a row. That you are listening to KGUA in Wallala 88.3 FM. We are streaming around the world at kgua.org. Just click listen live, and you can see the interactive schedule there on the website as well as the app. You just save that to your digital device and you can take it with you anywhere. And I'm Leanne Lindsay. This is Peggy Berryhill, and behind us, Paul Mundy. And Paul actually is going to be introducing our next guest, who is there waiting in the waiting room. And I'm going to ask her to start her video now so that we can go ahead and move on into her presentation. And thank you again, Ted. And while we wait for Norma, is there anything else that you wanted to say, Peggy?
Well, I want to remind people, if you have questions, you can submit a question. There's Norma.
There she is.
You can submit questions to Ocean Life Symposium, all one word, at gmail.com. Ocean Life Symposium, over these 2.5 days now for us, as we've been on the air. Fabulous information about
Really?
our oceans around us, and we continue all the way through Friday at noon.
And we also thank our sponsors again. We had so many who jumped in at the last second because we was such a big production to pull off. And we got the Sea Ranch Lodge, Lisburg and Company, as well as Linden Design Gallery,
Surf Market,
and also
Thai Kitchen.
Anchor Bay Thai Kitchen, as well as Sea Ranch Supply, CNA Metalworks. Thank you to all of those sponsors. And now we're going to have Paul, who's going to introduce our next guest, who's waiting here with us on Zoom.
Up next, everyone, we have Norma Jellison, who talks about Whale Watch, a public education program at Bodega Head. Norma is a longtime coastal advocate and volunteer with Stewards of the Coast and Redwood, Audubon Canyon, Sonoma County Surfrider, and the California Walk Beach Cleanups. At Bodega Head, Norma is an interpreter for the whale watching program by Stewards of the Coast and Redwoods. So Norma, welcome to the symposium. We're looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
And we're live on YouTube, everybody. So welcome, Norma.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here today to talk about the Whale Watch program at Bodega Head. As Paul mentioned, we are sponsored by and part of Stewards, which is a nonprofit organization that partners with the Russian River sector of the California state parks, which includes Armstrong Redwoods State Natural Reserve in Guerneville and the adjacent Austin Creek Recreation Area. And that sector also includes the Sonoma Coast State Park, which is all the beaches from Bodega Head and Bodega Bay north to just above Jenner. So from the forest to the sea. And Stewards volunteer programs include Seal Watch, interpreting the harbor seal colony at the mouth of the Russian River, tide pool interpretation. We have a mobile marine van, the Steward ship, that can be found at special events and festivals, and it goes to local schools, all in furtherance of the Steward school and community-based education goals and interpretation of the redwood forest and the intertidal and marine ecosystem of the Sonoma coast. Stewards volunteers lead docent programs interpreting redwood ecology, monitoring at Willow Creek watershed, which is a tributary to the Russian River, and seabird monitoring associated with the California Coastal National Monuments and the Seabird Protection Network, and pinniped monitoring associated with Sonoma water and the Russian River biological opinion. Stewards volunteers also operate the visitor centers at Jenner and Armstrong Redwoods. First, Seal Watch and then Whale Watch were the first interpretation programs and the origins of Stewards, which originally was called Stewards of Slavyanka, the Russians' name for the Russian River. And actually, if you could see it, which I'm not tall enough, my Whale Watch shirt still has Stewards of Slavyanka logo on it. So Whale Watch was started in 1986 by Bee Brunn, who all of us volunteers affectionately called Whale Mother. And until she stepped down in 2016, she could be found every weekend at Bodega Head in helping visitors to see the migrating gray whales, Pacific gray whales, and imparting her vast knowledge and passion for gray whales to visitors and volunteers alike.
It would help if you're sitting
Bee was also a longtime volunteer
of this
at
thing.
nearby UC Davis Bodega Marine Lab, leading public tours Friday afternoons.
Yeah,
Wonderful family.
Like I'm not on the screen.
obviously have a good relationship too. I'll let you go.
Having volunteered with Stewards, Seal Watch first and then Whale Watch for about 30 years, I currently coordinate the Whale Watch program at Bodega Head with the assistance of 5 other weekend coordinators who are longtime veteran whale watchers, 2 of whom, a couple who come down from Sacramento, have volunteered with Whale Watch for 30 years. Whale Watch volunteers are at Bodega Head Saturdays and Sundays from January through May, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., weather permitting. We're changing our hours this year. We used to be there noon to 4, and now they're going to be there 10 to. Recognizable by our green vests with state park insignia patch and Whale Watch in large yellow letters on the back, we stand on the promontory at the end of the west parking lot at Bodega Head. And if I were more capable with my share screen stuff, I have a great aerial of the parking lot and the promontory where we stand, but we'll leave that for another day. Come out and see us and you'll see it in person. So with unobstructed views to the horizon, we look for that distinctive blow that tells us that a whale is surfacing. There she blows, or he, as the case may be. The promontory allows us to simultaneously talk with visitors, educating them about the gray whale's life cycle, their amazing 10 to 12,000 mile round trip migration, and their shifting population numbers. Currently, they're thought to be 20,000 gray whales, although the impacts of a recent multi-year die-off are still unclear. In addition to interpreting about gray whales as we aid visitors in spotting them from the promontory, we also have a table set up at the perimeter entry to that promontory. And on that, we have whale artifacts. So we have rib bones, vertebrae, baleen, barnacles, and whale lice, all from a juvenile gray whale that washed up on a nearby beach. Stewards holds these artifacts under a permit from state parks. We also have a large size poster of the marine mammals of the Eastern Pacific Ocean and photos taken from Bodega Head and from down in the mating and calving lagoons of Baja. And we also have put together a takeaway card, which is the rack card, which has facts about whale watching and Pacific gray whales and those round out our interpretation aids. Bodega Head offers a really great and excellent vantage point to see the gray whale migration. And being land-based, Whale Watch gives the public a chance to see whales without having to go out on a boat and maybe get seasick, like the previous speaker talked about doing early in his life. In January, we begin to see the grays in their southbound migration, swimming from the amphipod-rich feeding grounds in the Bering and the Chukchi and the Beaufort Seas up in Alaska. And they're on their way to the mating and calving lagoons on the Pacific side of Baja Sur, Mexico at that time. In that southbound migration, they're generally closer to the horizon off our coast, and they're taking advantage of the southerly flowing California current. And at that time, we're mostly going to be seeing blows, some backs, and some flukes. Hopefully, that's always a delight. So the first southbound include pregnant females, some of whom will give birth off the shores of Southern California, but then they'll continue and take their calves down south into the lagoons. And most of the calves are born in the lagoons along the Pacific side of Baja Sur, Mexico. Males and females mate on the way south as well as in the lagoons, and the mating displays in the lagoons are quite dramatic. I've been to the lagoons, the Laguna de San Ignacio, and seen the mating behavior. It is dramatic. About mid-February, Whale Watch sees the first northbound migrating grays, and those would be the newly pregnant females who got pregnant on the way down or in the lagoons, and they're in a big hurry to get back up to the feeding grounds. The northbound migration uses the closer in and warmer Davidson current, and that affords us at Bodega Head, at our viewpoint, really close-up views as they swim by the head. This is when we might see, in February, whales going in both directions before the juveniles change direction and start going north. Adults and juveniles continue the parade. All are mostly headed back to Alaska to eat, because for the most part, they haven't eaten since leaving their feeding grounds the previous winter. While they do feed opportunistically, they do prefer the amphipod-rich Arctic waters, although now some over summer are over, feeding off Northern California, Oregon, and Washington. And you've heard about that in previous talks. By early to mid-April, Bodega Bay's Bodega Head public education program for the Whale Watch begins to see mothers and calves. Now, they are often right under us in the shallow waters off the head, where we look down and they're right there in front of us in the water. You almost think you can reach out and touch them. The mothers and calves are the last to leave the lagoons because the calves needed to grow and gain strength for that first long swim north. When they're born, they're 12 to 15 feet and weigh about 1,200 to 1,500 pounds. But thanks to their mother's 50% fat content rich milk, they double in size before they make that first migration. Cow-calf pairs swim around the tip of Point Reyes Peninsula, which is visible immediately to the south of us and juts out into the ocean. We can see it very easily from Bodega Head. They generally swim at an angle towards the head and our promontory Whale Watch viewing site. They often stop by the Bodega Harbor Jetty just around the corner from our promontory, where they will rest and nurse before then swimming slowly past us and past our overlook vantage point. Calves are positioned on the inside of the mom, which is another reason we can see them so close up. She uses her girth and the coastal hills to protect the calves from detection by the orcas, which are really the only predator for the gray whales. Mom is still nursing, and the calf is a calf and needs to rest. So hugging the coast the way they do allows them to do that. The calves often put on quite a show by the head, spy hopping, reaching, and showing their tails as they dive. And of course, for the visitors who are there with us on Bodega Head, and for the volunteers as well, it's always a delight to see the calves and see the show that they put on for all of us. And so close, as I said, it feels like we can reach out and touch them. We continue to see the cow-calf pairs, and then the remainder of the gray whale population, the adults, all headed north through the end of May. So our whale watch program runs from January to May, and mostly the number of gray whales migrating past us that slows down toward the end of May. So as a result of that, we closed the whale watch public education program at Bodega Head at the end of May. Bodega Head is a destination that attracts hundreds, if not thousands, of visitors from California and around the world. There are 2 parking lots at the end of the road around Bodega Bay's harbor, coming in off of Highway 1, and there's a very large State Park Bodega Head sign that points the way to our whale watch site. Both lots are free, and they provide access to trails, with the westernmost lot being the location of our interpretation program. Many visitors come to Bodega Head to hike the trails around Bodega Head, and many birding groups from all over the Bay Area and inland from Sacramento and from the south come out to the head to see birds. And other visitors, of course, they're coming because they're hoping to see whales. But a lot of people have no idea that Bodega Head provides a whale watch opportunity for them. They're just following the road to the end of the road. And so they're pretty amazed when they see that they have a chance to see, I would say. We call it whale watch, not whale see. There's no guarantees. So they have a chance to see gray whales migrating along with other whales. We see humpbacks and not so much blues because they need the deeper water and they're further offshore. But we see seals, we see sea lions, we see dolphins, and a lot of nesting birds like gulls, cormorants, and oyster catchers nest on the rocks in front of the promontory. And of course, we see pelagic birds because they're migrating past the head as well. So for those visitors who didn't know what they were going to stumble upon, if you will, it's pretty exciting for them to do that, to stumble on this location and possibly see whales and come upon the volunteers who will impart information to them about the gray whales, the other marine mammals, birds, and then, of course, just in general, the incredible ocean life and the history of Bodega Head with the stopped nuclear power plant, if you will, stopped by citizens. So this is all a bonus for the volunteers. Whale Watch has about 30 volunteers. A day-long annual orientation training takes place in mid-November, and that's coming up in a couple of weeks now. And it provides an overview of the Pacific gray whale's life cycle, migration patterns, feeding, mating, calving, all about the lagoons in Baja, information about population trends, and what's involved with volunteering with the Whale Watch program. We are an interpretive public education program. We do not count whales, as we are present limited hours and only on weekends, weather permitting. We're there, as I said, we're from January to May, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., weather permitting. And so, we're not there long enough, these limited hours. and weekends only to allow us to count reliably. We make note of it in a log that we keep of our whale watch program, but we don't count. Other programs like the American Cetacean Society's LA chapter has a gray whale census and behavior project at Point Vicente Interpretive Center. And there they have been counting whales that pass the Palos Verdes Peninsula since 1984. And also Granite Canyon is the official National Marine Fisheries Service site, and they count and report on the population. And of course, Scott and Tree count up at Point Arena Lighthouse. They count pretty much every day, and Scott and I are in communication. I'm always asking him, what did you see today? The November training gives instructions how to sign up to volunteer in advance of the season's start in January. And Stewards staff then provides an overview of the marine protected areas off the head in the Sonoma coast. We have California State Park lifeguards who give an ocean safety talk during the training, and then state park staff describes the online state park portal to record visitor hours. We have many volunteers who return year after year to participate in this Whale Watch public education program. To aid in adding new volunteers to the volunteer ranks, Stewards staff advertises the orientation training on the Stewards website, which is stewardsscr.org, if you're interested in exploring it. And we also, they also put out information on social media and local newspapers, and with the Santa Rosa Junior College and the Sonoma State Marine Education Program staff. Stewards also networks with the Sonoma County Youth Ecology Corps, Seabird Protection Network, Sonoma Marine Protection Areas Collaborative, Sonoma Water, and Sonoma Environmental Education Collaborative. All of these contribute to the success of the volunteer programs. There was no whale watch in 2020 after March or this year. We love interpreting. We're anxious to get back out there, and we hope to resume this public education program and share our love for the Pacific gray whales. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Norma. I think we're former neighbors. I lived up in Portuguese Beach area for many years, and I saw your face, and I thought, oh, she looks so familiar.
Yeah, that's where I am in Serena Del Mar.
Well, we must have been neighbors then.
And I was in Sebastopol for a while.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So you know what the funny thing is, though? All the years I lived in Portuguese Beach, I never saw a whale. And I didn't even know I was supposed to go over to the head. But, you know, when you live at Portuguese Beach, you don't often go looking for other places.
I did go to Bodega Head quite a lot.
Yeah, we see humpbacks quite a lot in the summer, breaching and feeding just around Portuguese. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, somehow I missed it all. Unless things have, maybe the feeding has shifted over the years since I lived there. It's been, I don't know, a dozen years or so since I lived down there.
Well, you know, as I said, the joke is our vests, we wear these vests, and on the back it says Whale Watch. And I always tell the volunteers and the people who visit, it's Whale Watch. There's no guarantee you're going to see. But we do hope. We always have hope.
Absolutely. I have to ask you another question, though. Your hat you are wearing, you have a lot of pins on there. What do some of those represent?
Well, I have a pin for every whale that it's possible to see off the head. So the grays, the humpbacks, the blue orca, of course. And I also have heron and egret because of my time volunteering down at Audubon Canyon Ranch in Marin County.
It's in Tamales Bay.
You know, just, you know, all, and other birds that, because I like to bird as well as watch whales. So, yeah, but I'll tell you, all my pins notwithstanding, they look like there's a lot. But the number of whales and pins that I wear is nothing compared to what Bee Brunn, our whale mother, used to have. She had like every finger was covered with whale rings, whale earrings, whale pins. She was something else.
Well, we really enjoyed your
We did.
presentation, and as we're enjoying all of our presentations, and we're so lucky to have this symposium, and we still have a couple more days of it, but learning so much about what we see when we look out over the Pacific here from, from the lagoons, as you know, where they're born, and as we can even go northward to Washington and some, from Alaska, as we're learning.
And thank you so much, Norma. It is now up on the 10 o'clock hour. So we thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
All
Bye-bye.
right. You are listening to KGUA in Wallala 88.3 FM. We are streaming at kgua.org on apps Radio Garden and Tune In our own app, Air Pocket. And you can get that from the website in the upper left-hand corner when you click Listen Live. And the interactive schedule is there too. I'm Leanne Lindsay along with Peggy Berryhill and Paul Mundy. And this is the third day of the Ocean Life Symposium brought to you by your friends here at KGUA and Mendonoma Whale and Seal Studies, Scott and Tree Mercer, and our sponsors who are Linden Design Gallery, the Sea Ranch Lodge, Lisberg and Company Realtors, Surf Market, the Sea Ranch Supply, and CNA Metalworks.
And Thai Kitchen and Anchor Bay.
And Anchor Bay Thai Kitchen. And then also, if again, you do have questions, you can email those to oceanlifesymposium@gmail.com. And now Paul is going to introduce our next speaker here today.
Coming up next, Sarah Grimes of the Noyo Center of Marine Science and California Academy of Science gives us an update on marine mammal strandings. Sara is Stranding Coordinator who responds to all deceased marine mammals, working under collaborative agreement with the California Academy of Science as part of the West Coast Marine Mammal Stranding Network. Sara, welcome to our program.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you all, team, for doing this incredible conversation going live up and down the coast and beyond our shores. This is incredibly cool. You guys are doing great.
Thank you so much. And we do have a big team back there, including Roberta Chan and Jean Berry and George Callis, who's not with us today, but a lot of people who've helped bring this thing about. Thank you so much.
Of course, it's just so exciting to see how we're all connected up and down the coast and, from Portuguese Beach to Portuguese Beach, because we have a Portuguese beach up here in Mendocino as well. And I get reports for Portuguese beaches of a whale, and I'm like, oh, shoot, it's in Mendocino. Oh, no, it's in Sonoma.
Where is Portuguese Beach here in Mendocino County?
In Mendocino, it's right in the village of Mendocino. It's where
That's
the
right.
Portuguese part of town of Mendocino.
Yeah.
It's a south-facing cove, and
Okay.
part of my stories today. It's actually really cool. It'll remind you of how connected we are and how things float from one place to another.
All right. Thanks so much, Sara. We're going to let you take it from here.
All right. So just a little bit about me. I was born in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado, Aspen, and my parents really raised me pretty much out of doors and found myself deeply connected to the wild world around me.
I had to just come back on and say I spent a lot of my youth in Aspen from the 60s to the mid 80s.
Oh, well, we probably bumped into each other and
We'll have to talk.
That's very cool. Yeah, I was born there in 64. There we go. Get out there out with my age, right?
Oh, yeah. Me too.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So that upbringing that my parents gave me was, just a way to connect deeply. And I feel like that, if you get that connection at any time during your life, that it allows you to become, more deeply connected to these things. And, you can explore the forests, but exploring the ocean is just, wow. I just had a power outage. So that's going to be really interesting. My computer's going to stay on for a bit. There it goes. Great. We've got power outages to start me off. That's fun. Anyway, I will start sharing my screen now. I had a funny story about how I kind of connected to those mammals that are in the ocean. When we first moved here, we were pretty poor. So my parents weren't taking me to Marine World or traveling much, but we did get down into Marine World at one point, but we weren't ticketed. We went on a day that it was closed, and we somehow found ourselves walking in Marine World. And I walked right up as a little 9-year-old to the edge of the pool of the orca and slapped the edge of the pool, and nobody was around. And this orca swam right up to me, and I was able to touch that orca and feel that velvety skin. It was absolutely mind-blowing. And my dad is standing at the top of the stairs, and he tells me, "Step away from the pool, Sarah." So we're going to have some interference from the power being out here, but I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen as the power flickers and flickers. Super fun. Let's see. Share. Super fun. It's dark in here, and the power's like flickering on and off. That's just, bear with me. Here we're going to get into present mode. Hopefully you'll hear the, you are going to hear the power flickering, but that's okay. We'll see what we can do. Or you're going to hear the backup generator or the whatever it is. So here's something that does wash ashore as plankton. It flows up and down and is plankton and floats them. And we saw an abundance of jellies this year out there in the ocean. And a lot of them did wash ashore. Anyway, beautiful sighting of jellies. So who and what has washed ashore in 2021? And I have to say, who and what has washed ashore and washed away and washed ashore and washed away. So things have come and gone this year like never before. But here we are. Many of you report animals to me in my range. But some of my biggest helpers are actually the turkey vultures. They report a lot of dead and deceased animals along the coast, as we all know. Thank you, turkey vultures. They clean up the carcasses. They report dead stranded. They point out dead stranded things as I'm hiking up and down the coast. Hats off to those fabulous turkey vultures. So as a designee organization under the California Academy of Sciences, Noyo Center responds to deceased mammals up and down the Mendocino coast. And that's a southern Mendocino County coastal area. So if we go up north of Westport, we're going to get into the next range, and you'd have my colleague Allison Louie in Humboldt State up there, and they will respond to animals that are north of Westport and along the Lost Coast and up into the Humboldt area. I think they are currently working on a couple whales that washed ashore. And then to the south, all the way down to Anchor Bay or whatnot. As we get into Gualala, we've got Team Sonoma, who are also kind of beach watch and responding to animals on the Sonoma coast. And so we don't draw a hard line. This is our coast, and things move about sometimes along the whole range. There are numbers here for NOAA Fisheries, their number, that's kind of the headquarters. And if you're ever at a loss, go to the website for NOAA Fisheries, and you can find that stranding hotline there. And then they'll give you region-wide where you would report a stranded marine mammal. And when I say stranded marine mammal, it could be a marine mammal, or it could be a sea turtle, live or dead. All of these things, they are our kind of clues as to what's going on out there. So really important to keep those stranding hotline numbers in your phone contacts. And you can call California Academy of Sciences. They've got a hotline. And then if you're in my southern Mendocino range here between Anchor Bay or so and Westport, you can keep my number 707-813-7925. All marine mammal stranding activities were conducted under the authorization by the National Marine Fisheries Service through a stranding agreement issued to the California Academy of Sciences. And that's got a permit number So none of the work is possible without those permits. So thanks to the people that keep these permits current. Trust me, that's the hard part. So who might wash ashore in our region? Of the otariids, that would be the eared seals. So we have the California sea lion, the Steller sea lion, Guadalupe fur seal, and northern fur seal. Those are our pinnipeds with those long flippers that swim using the strength of those powerful front flippers and can rotate their rear flippers and walk on land. And then they have the sticky outy ears, I like to say, kind of like me. Guadalupe fur seal. Here's a beautiful picture of one that came ashore, nice and alive and sassy up on 10 Mile Beach. Photo by Ron Lavallee, and another one, a northern fur seal. And the northerns have a little football shaped head, and the Guadalupes kind of have a pointy nose. And they are really very pelagic in this region and stay out offshore for the most part, but will strand if they're not doing well. And we do get quite a few of the pups of both species that wash ashore when things aren't right. If they get weaned too early, they'll strand due to malnutrition, and sometimes live and sometimes dead. And we would send those live ones down to the Marine Mammal Center to where they are put through fish school and released back into the wild. Of the phocids, or the true seals, we've got the harbor seals and the elephant seals. And I'm pretty sure anybody who lives along our coast is pretty familiar with either of those species. And of the cetaceans, we would have the previous speaker gave a nice overview of the many cetaceans that are out there and could wash ashore. Pacific white-sided dolphins, Dall's porpoise, harbor porpoise, and all of the whales and that we've been talking about. I don't really need to go through that list, but there it is, any number of those creatures. And actually in my range, I've actually had pretty much all of the species except for a sei whale. I've had all the others, from sperm whale to blue whale to fin whale, to orca to, the sperm whale calf washed in right down there near Anchor Bay quite a few years ago. So, wow, we can learn so much about these animals when they wash ashore. Graphic content warning. I'm going to get into some slides that will definitely be, of the deceased marine mammals. But kind of the most disturbing thing that I've started to stumble upon post-2020 in this era of masks is these stinking single-use masks, which, yes, bless them, they keep us protected. But I wish people would cut the strings at least, and take them off the beach. I can't tell you how many I've seen floating or washing ashore or in the storm drains. So pick up those masks.
And we were just wondering, Sarah, that beep in the background must be from your backup power supply. Has your power gone out there?
It totally has. Yeah, in case you missed that, I'm running on my backup power. Like literally 10 o'clock, my power went out. So forgive the beep. I'm really sorry. If I turn that thing off, I think I might actually be able to.
Oh, I don't know if you should. I just wanted the audience to know what that beep was.
Thank you. Yeah. I think me and electronics have like some really crazy love affair. I kid you not. So far in 2021, I've had 21 California sea lions, 7 harbor seals, 7 adult harbor seals, 22 pups, 3 northern elephant seals, 2 Guadalupe fur seals, and no northern fur seals or Steller sea lions, thank goodness. And I did have no whales, knock on wood, knock on all wood. They've all stranded to the north and south of my region this year, except that in 2021, I had bits of a whale that stranded originally in September on Manchester Beach. It was a humpback whale. And then I've had some predation. I've had a number of orca kill and shark kill pinnipeds that have washed up. So when you get like 3/4 of a seal, and how to investigate there and look for tooth marks and whatnot. I've had some tagged animals. And then these numbers, this is really important. these numbers represent only those marine mammals that have actually washed ashore in my region. Many animals never do come ashore. They just simply float until they become, whale fall or seal fall and sink to the bottom. And many don't get reported, right? Somebody sees a dead seal and they move on and they don't report it. And then range wide, just some interesting numbers. In 2019, in the whole range, in California Academy of Sciences range, they had 394 animals. 2020, they had 312. And then in 2021 so far, so we're not to the end of the year, it's kind of lower numbers, 284 so far. So that's just kind of a clue as to the numbers of these guys. But again, many never come ashore and never get reported. So it's just sort of an interesting little number. How about those waves, folks? Oh my God. Last year in January, we had a similar event where we had 23, 24-foot waves that like rearranged things all along the coast. And we just went through that too. There's a little noise in the background because my husband's trying to get me hooked up to the generator. We had these massive waves pounding, and that whale that washed in on Manchester Beach, bits of it went all the way up the Garcia River. So it went all the way up, like almost a mile up the Garcia River, and was reported by someone down in that area that there was a whale carcass on this little sand spit. It first stranded in September. It stranded again, parts of it all along September, October, November, December. I think different parts of it stranded in different areas. And then in January, after that storm, it stranded a mile up the river, the Garcia River, parts of it, right? We've just got the lower caudal vertebrae and a large portion of its throat pleats. And then the last time it stranded here, the last time I saw any parts of it were in February when it stranded. It was reported as an entangled whale by state parks, Snowy Plover Monitor. And it was a whale humerus, and it was a large lump or, a part of a whale. But by then, of course, it's months later, it's way degraded. And it stranded with these ropes and crab pot lines kind of mushed into the gush, into the gunk, into the blob. But when I pulled them, I saw, these ropes were not entangled around this whale. So he was once entangled, we're pretty sure, because he had evidence, scarring that looked like he had been entangled once, and he was missing his fluke when he washed in September. So pretty sure he was entangled initially, and then he washed about up and down the coast, and then up the Garcia, and then finally at Irish Beach. But he washed in with flotsam and jetsam, like logs and debris and ropes. So he was kind of the twice entangled whale. What a story. But the ropes weren't attached that last time that I saw the animal. And here's some pictures of that blob with the humerus of a young humpback whale. And I did get tissue samples that came back as positive of being a humpback whale. And never, ever do I blame the crab pot ropes. I know that the crabbers don't want to catch cetaceans or pinnipeds. They want to catch crabs to eat for Christmas dinner, not marine mammals. Hopefully we'll be moving to a time when things don't get stuck in ropes. Here's our Portuguese beach girl, adult female harbor seal, that then was reported by Beach Watch down in Manchester. I was able to identify this animal by her scarring on her belly, kind of sloughed off tissue there on her belly. Same scarring on the animal. So I was able to say, oh, that was actually already documented. So we won't count her twice. And many times I have no idea why these animals died. And sometimes there's clues that are obvious, and sometimes I have to dig deeper. Here's a very recent, just from this past week. And after the storm, I got a report of an animal at Anchor Bay Campground. Sadly, like actually almost camping with the campers way up that little stream in the salmon stream that they have there. Big stinky carcass that came up with that surge and with some massive redwood logs and whatnot. But I was able to, the camp host really did not want that carcass in that stream right next to his campers. So he helped me get it out of the stream, and I was able to collect level A data, which is measurements of the animal, determine species, determine sex of the animal, and maybe age class by that measurement. So is it a pup or an adult or full adult or subadult? So I was able to collect that data. And we tried to get that animal back out. Hopefully it stayed out. California sea lion. And then sleuthing, I have a master of marine mammal detective, who Sue Pemberton of California Academy of Sciences and the team down there have taught me well. And this is a sea lion that washed up in Fort Bragg, and I kind of was running my hand along the coat, and I felt a bump, and I got curious and dug in, and there was a buckshot right there under the skin. And you can kind of see this spray pattern here. So the sea lions do get themselves in trouble sometimes. I think there are very few fishermen who want to shoot the sea lions, but there definitely are bad egg sea lions who will chase a fishing boat all day. And there's also bad egg fishermen or people, who knows, who's shooting these animals, but it does happen, and it happens more often than I would like to. It's very sad that these animals get shot. So sleuthing is really a good thing to do, diving in a little deeper and trying to figure out what's up with these animals. Here's an interesting story. A harbor seal adult male that stranded again near Irish Beach. I collected the skull. I collect the specimens for California Academy of Sciences, where the skull and the baculum, whiskers, and tissue are archived down there and added to that collection. And now there is a representation of Mendocino animals, whereas originally there wasn't. But now, thanks to Noyo Center's relationship with the California Academy of Sciences, now we have these Mendocino animals representing the Mendocino coast, which is very exciting and good science. So this animal, I said, oh, he's got an entanglement scar. But I'm not sure that's why he died. You can see some scarring around the neck there. And then I collected the skull and cleaned it up the way I do. And they come out beautiful, natural bone. I don't use any like chemicals or bleach or anything like that. And in the nasal area through the sinuses, I found a stingray barb. So maybe that's why he died. He has this stingray barb that went right through the sinus. It was a good 4 inches, 5 inches long. So really cool story. And, easier to stomach those natural causes of death than human caused or HI. Human interaction. Tags and brands and different scarring or whatever, like we were talking about with the whales and Happywhale, how they can identify these animals. Tags are an obvious way, but then sometimes some unique scarring or whatever can help identify an animal and where it's gone in life and in death. Here's a recent strand of a California sea lion that has that Marine Mammal Center tag on it, on the left flipper, indicating that it is a male. Females get the right flipper because they're always right, but males get the left. That's why they left. Haha. Anyway, tagged animal. Looked a little closer, saw a little hole, a little bitty hole. You can see it's really not big. And then there's some staining. I dug in and I found that this tagged animal who'd gone through rehab was fat and healthy and beautiful, and unfortunately had been shot. I didn't find the ammunition, but I did find a shattered rib right under there. And there's really not much else that could inflict that kind of wound. Another interesting story, more on the natural side, but perhaps human caused way back, because sea lions come up with cancer quite often. This little guy had some shark bite wounds real obvious chomp to the shoulder, and then a chunk out of his flipper, but he's pretty fat and sassy. Upon cleaning him up, I collected the whole carcass to hopefully put him back together with students and articulate, learn more about how these animals and their skeletal structure is so similar to ours. And this little critter had some pretty major stuff going on with his bones. He had I'd need a bone pathologist to determine what was going on, but there was these massive kind of bone tumors. So could be cancer, could be something else. But that was only found because I did collect the whole carcass and soak it and clean it and keep it. I was like, oh my goodness, look at that. So I love these crazy clues that we get from time to time. And then other things that wash ashore can be reported. There are scientists studying sharks and rays. So I sometimes get asked to collect the head of a shark, or at least get the measurements and document. I've seen entangled sharks, many different species of sharks. I haven't had a great white yet. I've seen evidence on some of my animals that there's great whites out there. This shark is a salmon shark. We were able to determine sex and get the measurements. Had a bear wash in. My boss said, nope, that's not a marine mammal. Mission creep, stop. But this black bear was in the Noyo River, and we were able to collect his full carcass for either for the California Academy of Sciences collection or perhaps another articulation project. We'll see. He also showed evidence of a potential gunshot, or there was a puncture wound through his knee and his leg was very infected. Sea turtles. This is the second deceased sea turtle that washed in on 10 Mile in a few years. And then more recently, we did have a live sea turtle. Here's one of those. This is a big skate that washed up. And if you're out there adventuring, just throw down your shoe to see, to show, take a picture, get a location, take a picture, and get your date, and then you're as good as reported. But also call. This big skate is good to be reported, and an interesting stranding. You can see my foot there and my hand there, and gives you an indication as to size of this animal. Sea turtles, I just really want to say this to all of us along the coast, especially as you get up north into the colder waters, and with all that wind, all that sustained south wind, and all the jellies and all the productivity we've seen with all the pelicans, this turtle washed in alive at 10 Mile. So take note, please report sea turtles immediately to the Marine Mammal Center, dead or live. Oftentimes they can just be cold shocked. So it's really critical to try to get those into proper care. And then the deceased ones, important as well. We will collect them and take them down to the Marine Mammal Center, another partner for which I have been a volunteer for almost 20 years. And that kind of got me hooked. And I'll kind of end on a cool note of a live animal that has a brand. This is a northern elephant seal that showed up for a sunset rest on the Noyo beach. And this beautiful guy did have a dye marker brand, not a brand, but a dye marker number on him. And I called the folks up in Humboldt, and he was in fact seen last up in Humboldt at the breeding colony there, small. As they expand their range, they're coming up on the Lost Coast and actually pupping. So that's kind of it. I do ask that you go to the Noyo Center's website to see upcoming talks, including one longer one in which I will have a guest, Sue Pemberton, my incredible mentor, and I will talk more and tell you more stories about drift and what we've seen here and there. One animal that came all the way, traveled 265 miles in 8 days. So check out our website for upcoming science talks and visit. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thanks for bearing with the power outage and all. And I look forward to hearing the next speaker. Thanks again, everyone. Phenomenal.
Oh, thank you so much. We are so happy to well, I can't say we're all happy about all the news we're learning, but thank you for all your work. We were talking off air. People were so shocked to find out that these sea lions are shot, and a lot. And I know that they're shot by fishermen. They're seen as competition, and it's a very sad story, and but it's just a sort of an ongoing story of people who hunt for a living, and they're whatever it is they see as competition.
Yeah, I do hesitate to blame it all on fishermen because the bear was shot too. So I really want to say that, there are people that go out and shoot the sea lions who are on the buoy
Target practice.
just for the heck of it. So I don't want to point the finger at the fishermen necessarily, because there are other people that do harass animals or vehicles that are left on the side of the road for no other reason.
That's true. That's true.
So, the fishermen are our allies. They let us know what's going on out there. And it's only thanks to them that we can disentangle a whale or, so.
I think the other thing is that you're also talking about is we've seen a change in relationships with now over the decades, and people who are studying the natural life in the ocean and fishermen. And I think there is now more of a understanding and importance of cooperation than there used to be. I think that's just a positive sign. And I just had a couple of,
and Paul learned something too.
I this concept of citizen scientist, and I'm thinking, wow, maybe I could be one. I walk the beaches at Sea Ranch daily, and I have been seeing every once in a while a stranding, and I never knew to photograph it and get the location and send it off. So that's for me, and I hope other listeners are hearing this and saying you can do that and be a citizen scientist.
Absolutely. Excellent point. Thank you, Paul. That's so true. Get the word out, spread the word. It's pretty easy to find your, the stranding hotline for your area. And we count on these citizen scientists to report these animals. It's so important, as you can see. So thank you.
So Sarah, I had one other question before we have to go on. I was so impressed with your skill also at taking the skulls and cleaning them up,
like CSI.
Yeah. Where do you learn those skills, or did you learn it on your own?
No, I'm trained with all of this work under California Academy of Sciences, who has this massive collection. And go onto their website. And Ray Bandar is someone who processed animals down from the Bay Area from the 50s, 60s, 70s. In his collection, we have a part of his collection at the Noyo Center. So if you can't make it to San Francisco, come to the Noyo Center and see this incredible collection of skulls that he collected and did the process of cleaning without bleaching and destroying these specimens that are scientific, archived scientifically. So I've learned special techniques, and I'm always just blown away at how beautiful they come out.
Can I have one last question?
We're running out of time.
All right. But a high school science teacher told me that these skulls of sea lions and dogs are very similar.
Aha. Yeah.
Is that true?
Very true. Yeah, they're very similar. And skeletons, if you think about your own skeleton, and then you think about a sea lion skeleton, and a whale skeleton. And I love bones and skeletons. I think they're fascinating. And you can look at a bear and a dog and a cow and a horse and see their adaptivity or their adaptive qualities and how they, We could talk all day. This is so much fun.
We could talk. I know, so many questions.
And Sarah, too, thank you so much. I used to live up in Little River as well. So we have to talk about Little River and Aspen, Colorado at another time. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
I attribute the CSI part to Paul Mundy.
There we go. Wonderful. Thank you.
All right.
So
Thank
much.
you. I just want to let our listeners and our watchers know too that this is KGUA in Walla 88.3 FM and live online at KGUA.org and on apps Radio Garden and tune in. You can hear us as well. You can get the schedule on our app and on our website. Interactive. You can click through and find out more about the speakers, their backgrounds, the title of their topic, and more links to their websites. And I'm Leanne Lindsay. This is Peggy Berryhill and Paul Mundy. And Paul is going to introduce our next guest here who is waiting here with us online.
One thing though, Leanne has also posted us on Pinterest. We're all over Facebook.
Actually, Instagram.
Instagram is what I meant. I was, so there's a lot of ways you can find information.
Yes, Instagram, Facebook, you name it, we're out there. So, but the easiest is the website, because right there you click schedule at the top of the page, boom, it's live and interactive, and you can click through and find out more. It's really very simple. And the app, you can save it to any digital device and take it with you. And you can even listen to it on your speaker in your car if you want to. All right, Paul, your turn.
Okay, we have citizen scientist Sara Bogard. Sara gives us counts of harbor seal and pupping rates at Point Arena Lighthouse Peninsula. Sara is an ocean conservationist as well as a citizen science for the Point Reyes National Seashore Harbor Seal Monitoring and Inventory Program. Sara is also a harbor seal docent at the Sea Ranch on her off time. Sara, let's hear what you have to say.
Good
And
morning.
welcome.
Can you all hear me?
Perfectly.
Oh, great. And can you see my screen?
Yes, we're going to say goodbye and let you take it from here.
Excellent. Well, first of all, good morning, Leanne, Peggy, and Paul. Thank you so much for having me today and hosting this Ocean Life Symposium. For Roberta, all the staff at KGUA and the other hosts as well, and all of our sponsors. And thanks, Scott and Tree Mercer, for having me as a guest today. I'm deeply honored. I'm a citizen scientist and volunteer for several organizations that promote ocean health and conservation. This data that I collect for these organizations over time builds a foundation of historical data in which researchers, scientists can analyze, see trends, and take actions needed to support ocean life. My work as a volunteer is founded in my belief that all beings need safe haven for survival and sustainability on Earth, the preservation of undisturbed open space on land and in the ocean provide balance and sanctuary that benefits all life. I believe the need for safe haven is not only environmental, but physical and stress related as well. Environment, climate change, population growth or decline, and resources all play a role in our perceptions. These perceptions guide the choices which support or diminish action towards being great stewards for life on Earth. The organizations that I volunteer for include the Greater Farallones National Marine Sanctuary Beach Watch Program, the Marine Mammal Center, and the Central Regional California Harbor Seal Monitoring Program, which is overseen by Sarah Cotty, marine ecologist for Point Reyes National Seashore. In addition, I serve as a harbor seal docent at the Sea Ranch during pupping season and do weekly surveys at the Point Arena Lighthouse Stornetta Public Lands. My volunteer work for these organizations is different and unique, but together integrate the overarching goal of ocean conservation. Beach Watch. I volunteer for Beach Watch and the Beach Watch program, wonderful program to volunteer for. It's a critical program of the Greater Farallones National Marine Sanctuary. Beach Watch is a long-term volunteer beach monitoring program. The goals of Beach Watch are to understand our coastal resources by creating long-term data set of the bird and mammal resources for each beach from Manchester State Beach up here in Mendocino County all the way down to Anuevo State Beach south of here. It assists in the sanctuary and early detection of natural or human-caused disturbances and is developing a network of local stewards that document and exchange information on the biological and physical changes of a particular beach may undergo throughout various seasons and over several years. So if you want to get involved in the Beach Watch training, become a volunteer and find out more about the Greater Farallones, contact or email taylor.nairn@noaa.gov. That's TAYLOR.NAIRN@NOAA.gov. I survey and photograph, collect data on the live and dead animals for Beach Watch. I also collect data on the condition of the beach, including weather, temperature, visibility, and tide level, and note beach racks such as wood, algae, invertebrates, and many other things. The dead marine mammals are reported to the Beach Watch Stranding Hotline and also to Sue Pemberton, Curatorial Assistant 2 at the California Academy of Sciences. If needed, the stranded pinnipeds or marine mammals on the beach are called into the Marine Mammal Center. Being a citizen scientist for the Beach Watch program is incredibly rewarding and valuable. I am grateful for the ongoing training that provides greater knowledge and a framework for gathering data on assigned beaches and bluff tops. This framework and training have increased my skills in species identification, the counts of live and dead animals as well, and the data over time lays the foundation for historical data and stewardship. My work for the Marine Mammal Center is slightly different. The mission statement of the Marine Mammal Center is to advance global ocean conservation through rescue, rehabilitation, scientific research, and education. Their veterinary science program, research and rescue, rehabilitation techniques for marine mammals are shared and coordinated through education and community outreach worldwide. My work for the center includes assessment, rescue of pinnipeds, and community outreach. During assessments, I locate, document, and send in photos and information on stranded pinnipeds or other marine mammals. If a rescue is requested, I work with a team of volunteers to secure and transport animals for treatment at the center in Sausalito, California. Out at the Point Arena Lighthouse, I have a slightly different, and this is for the Central California Regional Harbor Seal Monitoring Program. We do seal counts, and this monitoring program includes Sonoma, Marin, and San Mateo counties and the San Francisco Bay. The Point Arena Lighthouse, Stornetta Public Lands, and seal counts have only just recently been added to this program. And along with other participants in this program, they come from various government agencies, nonprofit groups, and volunteers. And on your right is a wonderful picture of Sarah Cotty doing her favorite work, monitoring the seals out at Point Reyes. The mission statement of the Point Reyes National Seashore Association is that Point Reyes National Seashore partners with National Park Service to create opportunities for people to experience, enhance, and preserve Point Reyes National Seashore for present and future generations. Point Reyes National Seashore Association is a nonprofit group that helps fund research and volunteer programs at Point Reyes National Seashore. And if you would like to get involved, again, as a citizen scientist or volunteer, contact PT Reyes, that's PTREYES.org. A few facts about harbor seals. This is from the Field Guide to the Marine Mammals of the Pacific Northwest. Adults weigh from 200 to 300 pounds and are approximately 5 to 6 feet in length. The pups weigh 15 to 25 pounds and are 20 to 40 inches in length. They're the smallest of the phocids or earless seals. They have no external ear flaps. They haul out on rocky substrates, on sandy beaches, and at the mouth of estuaries. They have very little sexual dimorphism, and they are the least pelagic of the pinnipeds, resting on shore almost every day. Average haul out time is between 10 and 12 hours. They are very wary of people and terrestrial predators and will flush into the water easily. Predators include great white sharks, killer whales, northern elephant seals, stellar sea lions, terrestrial predators, and humans. Tide level, time of day, and season affect their presence on shore. Most forage from dusk to dawn, resting during the day. Disturbance behaviors I record include head alerts, flushes, and full flushes into the water. Harbor seals are sexually mature at 3 to 5 years old, and gestation is 9 to 10 months with a 1 to 2 month delayed implantation. Most pups in this area are born from March through June, and that would be in the Sonoma, Mendocino coast and up and down California. They can swim at birth and nurse on an average of 30 days. A pup may be left by itself while the mother forages, and general public often thinks it's abandoned. They eat small schooling fish, crustaceans, and cephalopods, and are opportunistic feeders, eating other species as well. And all of this information and these facts are from the Field Guide to the Marine Mammals of the Pacific Coast, written by Sarah G. Allen, Joe Mortensen, and Sophie Webb, University of California Press, 2011. A wonderful book to have. The last statewide population estimate of harbor seals was 30,968 individuals, determined from a 2012 NOAA survey from their Stock and Fisheries report. So out of the lighthouse, my work with the Point Arena Lighthouse Stornetta Public Lands began in 2018 with the suggestion and encouragement of my friend and mentor, Jamie Hall, who also got me involved in photography, and he's on the staff for the Beach Watch program. At the time, there were no surveys being done out here of these harbor seals, and I enthusiastically dove into the task and never looked back. So to give you a sense of the geography of the area, this is a picture of the area I survey. It takes about 2.5 hours to survey all of this. I have one area here at the Stornetta Bluff south end of the Lighthouse Road, one at the entrance to the lighthouse, one at the far west point of the West House, Devil's Punch Bowl, and to the north side of the bluff. What these look like geographically are, this is the south side, is a rather large haul out area, and most of the seals and the higher number of seal counts congregate here. At the entrance to the lighthouse, the kiosk is right there. You'll also see these harbor seals, and all of these areas get submerged underwater when there is high tide or storm surge. Out at the north side of Stornetta Bluff, there's a rocky outcropping protected, and the seals haul out here as well. At Devil's Punch Bowl, it's a little more difficult area. The tide comes in sooner and really submerges these rocks, but you can see a couple of seals out here just to give you a closer look. And I have seen pups, mothers and pups out here in the area. Some of the disturbances I've noticed have been the Coast Guard chopper, which wasn't a great disturbance, but I saw it do 4 runs into the helipad located at the Point Arena Lighthouse. And the first run that it came in, all the seals on the north side did a head alert. But I noticed that the second through the 4th times, they completely ignored the chopper, which made me feel that perhaps they were slightly a bit habituated to the noise and the sound of the chopper. Out here in the lower right corner, you see a person walking on the beach, probably beachcombing, and they may or may not be aware of the harbor seals out there. This comes into play during pupping season, and the possibilities of maternal separation between mother and pup. So human disturbance can be not realized by the person who's actually just wanting to get on the beach and beachcomb. Just to give you an idea of what the harbor seals look like when they have a head alert, you can see in this picture, there's head alerts, there's a flush, and there's full flush into the water. This particular time, I was the culprit. When that happens, I back off from the bluff top and hunker down and wait for the animals to settle before I resume counting. And although I look very close to these animals, these pictures are actually taken from 400 feet away or even greater, and I blow them up on the computers. So I'm nowhere near these animals. I'm high up on the bluff, but still they react to my presence. What does a normal flush look like? Well, it's more relaxed. The seal decides to go into the water, reaches towards the water, and gracefully exits into the water. Once they're in the water, you'll see them looking up at you in the coves, or during high tide. We frequently see them out here. And they'll also be bottlenosing or resting, as in the case of this photo where I saw 5 lined up. There were 6 seals all together. And they're dozing, they're resting. If they can't rest on the rocks, they'll use the water if it's calm enough. And sometimes I take photographs of portraits of seals. So for those of you who are not on the YouTube link today, I highly advise, if you'd like to see some close-up photos of these seals and these inhabitants, to go onto the kgua.org YouTube channel so you can see these photographs and see, most of all, these individuals. So I'll take portraits of these animals, and they'll be on different days, they'll be looking out. I'll recognize them from their pelages and their locations sometimes. And they have different expressions. And on a different day, every day is different. They're very natural in the water. On land, they're resting, often with the shorebirds, as in the case of this western gull in the foreground. And the tide comes in, it goes out, and the seals have to merge with the water. They'll stay on the rocks for as long as possible. And I find that they have different expressions. So I look for something interesting happening, such as this seal with its eyes slightly closed, its tongue slightly out, or one gazing around, such as this female here. And sometimes they'll all be in a row. Harbor seals are generally about 6 inches apart, unless it's a mother and pup. And occasionally I will see a seal with a red pelage. This photograph was taken by Sara Bogard out at the Point Reyes National Seashore. And the red pelage is thought to be a deposit from the iron oxide on the hair follicle. And sometimes you'll just see a partial pelage, like part of their coat will be red. And I have seen partially red pelage seals in 2018, 2019, and 2021. This seal appears to have a slight tinge, red tinge to its pelage. And sometimes when I'm looking out, I'll see one seal very obviously, but the other seal will be completely camouflaged, such as the seal on the left, these 2 males, and I'll have to recount. The seals are yogic masters. They are constantly moving into these wonderful stretching positions, such as this young male, well, adult male, reaching towards its flippers, almost like a donut shape. Sometimes I capture them as they are doing various stretching and yawning motions, and take a little portrait just briefly of what the seals are doing. Sometimes they are in the perfect savasana, such as this seal lying on its back, looking like it's in total bliss. The seals definitely work with the tide. So when the tide comes in, they'll stay on the rocks for as long as possible until the water comes up. They'll hold their heads up, they'll hold their rear flippers out of the water. And it's interesting to watch how they just stay there for as long as possible. In this picture, the darker seal has, you can see very clearly the 5 toenails that are on each of their rear flippers. If I look at a group and I look to the other side, there might be another seal doing something interesting, such as this darker seal, who ended up giving a scratch and just lying back down as the water went out. The seals are often yawning when they come out of the water. And in the water, they're completely natural. They merge gracefully into the water and completely relaxed. I've watched them in the water, and I've watched them use the water in different ways. When hauling out, sometimes the younger seals will haul out up to a place where there are a number of adult seals, and it's a tentative type process. They go slowly, they go cautiously, they seem to not want to disturb the adult seals that are there before finally finding a place on the rocky substrates to rest. In the water, these seals can use the water in many ways. And one of the ways I saw one time was this harbor seal using the water as an elevator to go up onto the rocks as the tide was going out. So the tide would come in and the seal would reach towards the rocky haul out site and then float back down as the tide went out. So I watched this for several times, and there was a great deal of focus there with the seal, and the water came in. And I wasn't really quite expecting it. There was a conference with another seal. And finally, one of the waves pushed the seal all the way up to the rocky substrate, and the seal got to the top and arrived at its destination. So an interesting way that they use the water. At other times, I have been lucky enough to witness the birth of a harbor seal. And in the upper pictures here, you'll see this very pregnant female. She's lying on her back, she's rolling, she's twisting, she's scratching. And in the lower corners, you see the birth sac appear and begin to come out. This happened very fast. And finally, the whole seal came out. And the first thing that the female did, the mother did, was to sniff her pup and make contact with her pup. And she did this several times. In the upper right corner, you can see some of the afterbirth there. And she continued to really identify her pup with the smell, with the scent, and with the touch. And then she went to rinse herself off and came back on shore. Her pup was followed with her and was looking for their first drink of mother's milk. You could also see a western gull in the back that's pulling out some of the afterbirth, which is very nutritious for the western gull. And finally, this pup got a chance to nurse. And it was a very incredible experience, to see the birth of these seals. So if you have a chance to be out there on the bluff and take time, you too will see these amazing things. At the Sea Ranch Rookery, the pup and adult immature high counts. The high count is the highest count of pups or adults immatures on a given day over the survey season. So high counts for the harbor seal pups and adults in 2018 were 56 pups and 74 adults and immatures. In 2019, there were 54 pups and 112 adults and immatures. And in 2020, 51 pups and 82 adults and immatures, a fairly steady count. In 2021, however, there were 28 pups and 63 adults and immatures. But Sara Bogard said that although there was a lower count at the rookery in 2021, there was still a high count of total of 54 pups in the vicinity at nearby haul out areas. So perhaps they'd moved around. Out at the Point Arena Lighthouse, the harbor seal pup high counts for 2018 to 2021 were in May. If you look at the numbers, you'll see the lower numbers going into the high counts in red, and then with the pups tapering off to 0, which means that was when they were weaned, or you couldn't no longer tell the pups from the yearlings because they were no longer nursing. So usually that takes place in June 1st. But in May of 2018, there were 20 pups, and the high count for adults and immatures were 177. 2019, in May, there were 21 pups, and in July, 161 adults and immatures. During the COVID year, there were 23 pups in May, and later on, there were 104 adults and immatures. And it was a little more challenging counting during the COVID year because I had to park up at the top of Highway 1 and walk in and out to the site, which added about 2.5 hours extra to my survey. Part of the survey couldn't be done because I couldn't get into the lighthouse grounds, which were closed that year. In 2021, we had a good year with, this year's count, with 31 pups, and in July, 181 adults and immatures. And what do the pups look like out at the lighthouse? They are quite amazing. You'll see them, you can notice them with their very pink umbilical cords. This is a newborn pup with his or her mother. And these are really just a few days old, these pups. As the pups get older, their umbilical cord will begin to shrivel up and finally dry up and fall off. The mother and pups, a big time is spent nursing and exploring their worlds. Again, the tide comes in and the tide comes out at the Point Arena Lighthouse, and there are many coves and pools to stay safe. I see a lot of the pups at the south end, and I watch them as they nurse, and they all appear to be very healthy, a very good weight. And I always like to watch the relationship between the mothers and pups. So for all of you, again, who are listening to KGUA, I highly recommend, if you'd like to see these photos, to go on the YouTube channel and have the Zoom experience of this presentation.
Thank you, Sarah. And it's 11 o'clock coming up. It is KGUA in Wallala, 88.3 FM. And back to you.
Thank you. I watch them. They spend a lot of time resting, and they have a lot of relationships. So if the mother moves into the water, the pup will generally follow, and the same in reverse. They are definitely adapted to the water. And there seems to be a universal theme between mothers and their offspring. You can usually tell a pup because they're right next to the mother, they're in contact with their mother. And although they can swim at birth, they do get tired, and they will piggyback on their mother's back. So that's fun to watch as well. The navigation of getting on and off the haul out sites is a pretty important one. And I watch the mothers go up and encourage their young to come up onto the rocky substrates. This was a photo that I took on Mother's Day with a young pup and its mother who had finally reached the haul out area. Again, these pups and their mothers tend to take on similar characteristics. There's a lot of contact with sniffing, tactile contact, and I just watch, and I'm always fascinated and endeared by their interactions. It's very important. The mothers take incredible care, and it's the best chance of their survival that they are taking such care of their offspring. There appears to be a great deal of enjoyment from them, and most of the mothers I see are very good mothers. The pups often explore, and sometimes they get separated from their mothers. As they get older and become weaners, they are a little bit more relaxed on their own, exploring their world. And sometimes there'll be a situation where a young pup goes to another female and an altercation might take place. In this case, this pup went up to a female that wasn't her mother, and her mother was trying to follow and keep up with her pup. Both females got into a little altercation of snarling and pawing with the foreflippers, but it was soon solved and everything went back to calm. Again, out at the lighthouse with all the water, the pups begin to bond with each other, and especially as they get a little bit older. In this picture, you see a young pup along with an adult harbor seal and an immature harbor seal. And again, in the water, there's a lot of contact and touching for perhaps lessons being learned for these young pups in their navigating the area that they live in. This is a pup who didn't want to get out of the water and just kind of went half in and half out to nurse from its mother. And in summary of the 2021 Central Regional Program, marine ecologist Sara Bogard said in 2021, there were no major declines seen during the harbor seal pupping season. And while many sites did record a decline, they were relatively small declines. San Francisco Bay sites and Bolinas Lagoon in Marin County had a good year with an increase in the number of pups, as did Point Arena Lighthouse and Stornetta Public Lands. During the molting season, however, most sites experienced large declines. Continued and expanded monitoring will help us understand if this is a temporary or long-term decline, or if this is indicative of seals utilizing different areas during the molt season. Sara said some of the concerns for the future of harbor seals are effects from contaminants in the water, especially in the San Francisco Bay, continued disturbance from humans, especially harassment of pups, effects of El Nino, which is predicted to occur more frequently due to climate change and causes a breakdown in the food web, and habitat loss due to sea level rise. As the pupping season ends, or even during the pupping season, my role changes or is quite involved with the Marine Mammal Center as well. These are three of my teammates pre-COVID. There's no masks on during a rescue. And as responders and rescue responders, we are on call and have extensive training and protocol to assess and rescue these federally protected marine mammals. We often answer questions for the public and share information on how the center supports stranded seals. During assessments, photographs are taken to note body condition and exact location of the animal. Cell phone cameras are typically used by our team of response volunteers with a zoom feature to maintain a safe distance from the animal. If an animal reacts to your presence, you're too close. So using Zoom is an effective way for our team and the public to keep seals safe while taking photos. Photos, information, and a verbal written description of the individual are sent to be reviewed by the dispatch personnel and the veterinary team at the Marine Mammal Center. These experts determine if the animal is doing well, needs to be put on watch, or be rescued and transported to the center for treatment. Every situation is different, and special permits are required for assessment and rescue operations. During a rescue, some of the equipment we use, particularly seen in this photo, includes different size carriers, boards to guide the seals into the carrier and keep the rescuers and seals safe, beach wheels, rope, different size nets, and again, we all have extensive training. So in assessment of a seal, in this case, this is a northern elephant seal weaner. I use a Sony CyberShot 2000 camera, which takes high resolution close-up photos from 150 feet to 400 feet away in compliance with the Marine Mammal Protection Act. I then blow the photos up on the computer for more detail and send them into the center for the veterinary team to review and determine what action is needed. And again, while this photo looks close, it is taken from a long distance away. In the case of this northern elephant seal weaner, this is a time where his mother has left and gone back to feed, and this is a female, she's on her own. Her black coat is in the process of turning silvery gray. Her body condition is fat and healthy, and there were notes was working on her swimming and foraging skills. And I nicknamed her Scamper, and she was a delight to all the campground attendees. In this case of a seal that I took, another northern elephant seal immature that I took out on the Gualala Point Beach, this immature has a thinner body condition. You can easily see the neck dip and the skin folds that would indicate a malnourished seal. In the case of harbor seals who come out on the beach to rest, there are important issues to be aware of. During the harbor seal pupping season, pups show up all along the California coast. A harbor seal's pup's best chance at survival is to be left undisturbed with its mother, fed nutritiously, and taught basic skills before being weaned. Pups can be separated from their mothers due to intentional or unintentional human disturbance, such as dogs off leash or beach walkers approaching too close to the seal. Just to share an example, right about Mother's Day, I was contacted to assess a harbor seal called into the dispatch center hotline. And this turned out to be this particular harbor seal. I took photos and reported her body condition, wounds, and behavior, any safety concerns, and gave a detailed location of the animal. In the case of this harbor seal pup, later named Ma, after the sound the pups make calling to their mothers, I noted her body condition and was thin and took photos of her hips protruding and the dip between her head and shoulders. I also took photos of what appeared to be wounds on her head. That day, Ma was put on watch, which involved signage for the public to be aware of her presence and a volunteer staying on the beach to observe her and let the public know to keep a safe distance. The next day, it was reported she had returned to the ocean, but later on that day, the report of a harbor seal pup on a different beach was called in. When I responded to this call and turned in the photos, dispatch staff and myself identified her to be the same pup from the previous day from identical markings on her pelage or coat and her head wounds. Direction was then given by the center for this rescue team to bring her in for treatment. Together with a team of volunteers, Ma was rescued and driven to the center. Harbor seal pups typically weigh from 20 to 24 pounds at birth, and Ma's weight at admission to the center on the 9th of May was under birth weight at only 14.5 pounds. She was dehydrated and malnourished and diagnosed with malnutrition and maternal separation. Her umbilical cord was open but healing, which indicated that she was only a few days old. She also was diagnosed with unknown trauma due to the puncture wounds on her head. Antibiotics and medication to prevent infection were administered, and her wounds healed up after 9 days. At the center in care at the hospital, she was described as bright and alert, and Ma is in the upper left corner there. At such a young age, she was unable to eat solid fish, so she was fed fish milkshakes from a tube. She tube fed well from the start, and that was a really good sign. After treatment and fish school, where our vets and volunteers teach young patients how to eat fish, Ma began free feeding or eating on her own on the 24th of May and had gained a weight of 24.5 pounds. She was released 2 months later at Chimney Rock in Point Reyes, California on the 6th of July at a healthy weight and with the skills for the best second chance at life possible. And you can see how fat she is on her left rear flipper. She now has a tag to ID her. And this was Ma going into the water, happily exploring her new environment. Volunteering for the center gives me better understanding of marine mammals and what physical, environmental, and human factors may be affecting their populations. If you are interested in becoming a volunteer or finding out more about the center, this is a great place and it has many departments and areas to volunteer in. Contact them at volunteer@tmmc.org. And for more information, contact the Marine Mammal Center.org. And again, the Marine Mammal Center, the mission statement is to advance global ocean conservation through marine mammal rescue and rehabilitation, scientific research, and education. Other seals that I do see out here, just to finish up, are inaccessible. This is out at the lighthouse where I may see a wound, which could look a little gnarly or severe at first. But when I send the pictures into the Marine Mammal Center, they've let me know that oftentimes with the blubber layer, the seals are able to heal up. And in this case, you see a harbor seal with part of its rear flippers missing and a former wound on its left side, but at a healthy weight. Other seals I see, I don't know what has caused the wounds, but they are healing up, and that's a good sign. Most recently, I did see this younger seal with a injury to her rear flipper and hind end. It could be a predator. Again, it's hard to tell without taking a closer look, but I hope that she survives. Other things that I see out in the lighthouse, this was taken with my cell phone camera. I didn't have my good camera that day, but if you look on the left, you can see a turkey vulture, and on the right, there is a darker pinniped, a small one with a pointed nose, and it has external ear flaps. We were not able to get Sara Grimes down there that day because, well, she came down, but the tide had come in, so gathering data was not possible. But Sue Pemberton from the Cal Academy of Sciences did take a look and said that it appeared that this particular animal possibly was a Guadalupe fur seal. Other animals that I see, the dead tell just as many stories as the live, as such as in this California sea lion in a mummified condition. And sometimes I see seals with brands on them. And again, I like to contact Sue Pemberton at the California Academy of Sciences, and she has access to where these brands have come from. And we can notify those people and also send me back a little bit of history on this animal. These are cold brands that are taken. And again, just to let you know where to report dead stranded marine mammals, contact Noyo Center Stranding Coordinator Sarah Grimes at area code 707-813-7925, or the California Academy of Sciences hotline at area code 415-379-5381. And last of all, but not least, the West Coast Marine Mammal Stranding Network hotline up and down the California coast and West Coast, 1-866-767-6114. And this is a picture of a gull feeding on a deceased humpback whale. If you're reporting live marine mammals, contact the Marine Mammal Center hotline at area code 415-289-7325. And you'll see this picture of a California sea lion with an entanglement issue around its neck. Other animals that I see are the gray whales when I'm out there watching with Tree and Scott Mercer, sometimes pods of Riso dolphins. And at one point I did see 2 bottlenose dolphins, and I took pictures of the dorsal fins, sent them into Bill Keener, who is working for the Marine Mammal Center, and he got back to me identifying this animal from its dorsal fin as Sakura, that she was a good mother of 5 calves, and that's always wonderful to note and know something about the individuals you are seeing. Another time, a most wonderful sighting right off the bluff of the Point Arena Lighthouse was a pod of transient orcas that came by. I photographed their saddle patches and dorsal fins, and most of these animals are catalogued. You can see the notch in the dorsal fin that gives us distinct ID for this male here. And these particular 3 females turned out to be something somewhat special and well known. So I sent these photos into Nancy Black and Alyssa Schulman-Janiger, who co-founded the Killer Whale Project, and they identified them as CA26, CA36, and CA180 from those saddle patches. It turned out that these 3 females were quite famous, and they were written up in For the Win Outdoors by USA Today, an article by Peter Thomas in 2019, in this photograph by Joshua Meza Fidalgo, Monterey Baywatch naturalist. And Nancy and Alyssa noted that CA 26, 36, and 180 were now post-reproductive females that have something in common. They were dubbed the Golden Girls after the 1980s-90s sitcom about 4 elderly females. And Alyssa said that their estimated ages were 50s, 60s, or even 70s, and that none of the orcas had produced offspring in over 20 years. So that tells you something about the culture of these orca whales. I see many species out at the lighthouse, and over 70 bird species on a regular basis, migratory and resident, many marine and terrestrial mammals. It is a fabulous place to take a pair of binoculars and go out and take a look, because it's just teeming with rich ocean life. There's also Arena Mina, the lighthouse cat, Tassie, the lighthouse dog, along with executive director Mark Hancock, and forever Scott and Tree Mercer, counting the gray whales up and down the Mendocino coast, south and northbound, and all the other whales and seals as well. I give great thanks to the work they do. And many thanks to the work that everyone and all the participants of this Ocean Life Symposium. And just to let you know, volunteering for these organizations continues to integrate and expand my knowledge of ocean conservation. With the data from volunteers, these organizations establish historical database and a foundation of essential and vital information. Together, they provide sanctuary, support ocean health, and support ways for individuals and communities to invest as Earth stewards. The volunteer work I do deepens my commitment to provide and maintain safe havens for all beings and support for life on Earth. And just to close, I just most of all want to thank all of you at KGUA and everyone who's involved in this work as a steward, and especially all the inhabitants, both resident and migratory, at the Point Arena Lighthouse and Stornetta public lands, whose survival and relationships are stories for us to learn from. Their purpose is woven intricately with the land and sea that provides safe haven. Thanks to all who participate and share observations and data, which increase our knowledge, understanding, and stewardship for these beings and all life. Thank you, Peggy, Leanne, and Paul, for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Thank you, Sara. Really enjoyed it. Stick around for a few minutes if
Yeah.
you don't mind. You know, boy, do you have some wonderful photos, some really charming, sweet photos there that you shared with us of the sea lions and all the work. And we thank you too for all the work you do. You know, just using that term, some of us volunteers are like transients and visitors here as well, which is great. And you two are one of those people who come into the station regularly, and we're so happy. As we've had throughout this series so far, we're only on the third day, a couple of days left, but people, so many people like yourself who are volunteering their time, their energy, to bring us all this wonderful information, you know, and even Paul is talking about now all the photos he takes, and he's going to start sharing them with the right organizations.
Yeah, because he figured out as he's walking along the beaches, and if he sees an expired and life form there on the beach, he can photograph it and send it to the people who are tracking these things and can identify and help with the removal.
And Sara, one of the things I've really enjoyed, and I'm very familiar with the Sea Ranch Docent program as well, that takes place at Shell Beach. And I've been very fortunate to see the birthing of some pups. And it is a fascinating thing to watch, and how it involves the seagulls and everything. Everything all comes together. It's just incredible.
And one of the women that you had there in the photograph that had the purple shirt on, that's Laura Court. And I know that she spends a lot of time as a docent there on the beaches. And she has a horse down at the stables where I have my horse. And we used to ride together when I could ride with my horse. But anyway, I saw Laura there and wanted to give a shout out to her too.
And I saw my friend Joanne Richards there as well. So it's like, yeah, we're all doing our part, which is fantastic.
You know, I think it's also great, and I'm wondering, I don't know how much you've been able to watch over the last couple of days, but is this also adding to your knowledge as you're seeing so many of our friends and relatives in similar fields up and down the coast, from Noyo Harbor, which is close, to Bodega Bay, also close, and other places, other experts that we've had?
Yes, we're all interconnected. It is amazing. I think that there is such an amazing and full, rich community from these organizations into the volunteers, into the staffing, into the people who just walk into this completely unknown. It's an amazing situation.
That's great. Absolutely. Anyone else have any other questions for Sara before we're going to talk to Scott Mercer in just a moment, whom you know well, of course.
I just want to remind people what they're listening to, since it's been a while since we've mentioned that, and this is radio along with YouTube. This is the third annual Ocean Life Symposium, brought to you by everyone here at KGUA, along with Scott and Tree Mercer of the Mindanao Whale and Seal Study. They are joining us for the rest of the hour. Paul's going to talk a little bit about them. And first, I just want to let people know where they can get the schedule, how they can watch it and listen to it. We're going to be posting it to SoundCloud audio eventually, but immediately you can go to YouTube and see the past ones, and you can watch right now live. And the schedule is on our website, kgua.org, and you just click schedule at the top of the page, and you can click through and see people's bios, titles, and it is automated. It's an automated system, so you'll be able to see every day as it updates. And the Air Pocket app is great too, because you can save it to your device, any digital device, take it with you, play it in your car, watch it on the beach, wherever you get internet connection, actually. And I'm Leanne Lindsay. This is Peggy Berryhill, and Paul Mundy is with us today. Other people are George Callis, who'll be joining us again on Friday, and Roberta Chan, who's helping us with editing and lots more marketing materials and such, and our sponsors. We have lots of great sponsors, which we'll tell you about towards the end of this event. First, we're going to have Paul tell us a little bit about our co-producers, Scott and Tree Mercer.
Yes, joining us is Scott and Tree Mercer of the Mindanao Whale Alliance. And we're going to have a great conversation coming up. We're going to be talking about the Northern Atlantic right whales. And these two, I have to say, they have done a tremendous job pulling this together. And all the things that I know Leanne and Peggy, we have learned has just been phenomenal.
Absolutely. Every time they are on Peggy's Place, which is Monday through Friday, 9 to 10, and Scott and Tree are regular monthly guests, and of course are all of our friends now. And if you live here on the coast in Mendocino, not Mendocino, I'm sorry, in Gualala to Manchester, you will see this couple sitting out in really tattered outdoor chairs. We're just teasing it, and really long binoculars.
And we may just be talking to just Scott today, just by the way, but you had something else you were going to say.
Well, I was trying to let people understand who they're seeing when you're driving up and down the coast. You might even see them and wonder who they are. Well, it's Scott and Tree Mercer. And Scott, we're going to talk to you for a little bit. And one of the things that you are an expert on, you were from Maine, you're an expert on right whales. So why we don't have right whales out here? Are they only seen on the Atlantic?
No, there are Pacific right whales, but there are only a few dozen left. They were hunted and then hunted illegally after that. The Russians illegally took right whales in the Pacific, the North Pacific, for so long that it's really down to just a few dozen. I want to thank Sara Bogard, who's still listening, for driving over Donner Pass after this big storm we had the first of the week. She's been in Verdi, Nevada, practicing her presentation today. And then she did come up over Donner Pass, which was covered with snow, to get back home yesterday to be able to broadcast from her house today. So I want to thank her for that.
Thank you so much, Sarah. You're hearing your words, and we wanted to say goodbye to you. So, Peggy.
Well, Scott, again, you were starting to tell us that the Russians killed a lot of the right whales. I didn't realize we had Pacific right whales, but that would make sense. What was their migration like? Did they migrate over to the north of us and over? Did they migrate around, the continent?
No,
How did they?
Those are North Pacific right whales, and they were specific to the Pacific here. The right whales that I worked with are North Atlantic right whales, and they do migrate between Canadian waters, the Bay of Fundy, between Maine and Nova Scotia, and now lately because of climate change up into the Gulf of St. Lawrence, and looking for food. And part of the population winters down off of Georgia and Florida, where they calve. They don't mate down there as far as we know, but they do calve. In fact, we do know they don't mate down there. But the pregnant females do have their calves down there, and there are very few calves born because the population is plummeted again. We did think about 363. Now it looks like it's about 332 or 336, somewhere in there. So it's dropped 30 in the last couple of years, and this is due to entanglements and ship strikes, and also the low calving rate the females are experiencing. Due to poor nutrition, stress, noise in the ocean, and the ship strikes and entanglements.
Boy, we've been hearing a lot about every one of those
Yes.
subjects, whether it's affecting the whales, the seals, or the dolphins. All of this changes to the ocean. And when we were hearing Michael Stalker yesterday, hearing all the sounds from the ocean. I mean, how awful that must be to have that noise level
Absolutely.
increased. And for those, if you just take a bath and you put your head in the bathtub underwater and you hear all the noises in the house, anything
Amplified.
that's going, washer, dryer, whatever. So you can imagine what that must be doing to all of these marine life out there, that we have changed their world so much. We're learning so many things through this wonderful these days of this symposium that you and Tree have helped pull together. You've been studying this for a long time, Scott, and you used to take people out to see the whales in Maine.
Right. I started in New Hampshire. There's very compressed state borders down there. So like Jen Kennedy was saying yesterday, she works in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and lives about 10 minutes away in Elliott, Maine. I did have the pleasure of meeting the Cheeseman family back in the late 70s, and they went out whale watching with me when they vacationed in New Hampshire. And they went whale watching with me out of Seabrook, New Hampshire, when Ted was 8 and 9 years old. 8 years old, he's reminded me. And then when I moved my company to Newburyport, Massachusetts, which was only a few miles from Seabrook, New Hampshire, they continued to go whale watching with me out of Newburyport, Massachusetts. Yeah, I started studying right whales the first day that I led a whale watch trip in 1978. The first two whales that we ran into that day were two migrating females heading through out of Maine, heading through New Hampshire's short border, and on their way down to Georgia and Florida, where they delivered calves that following winter. Thank you, Paul.
Here you go.
I
Thank
lost my
It was a
halo.
little bit bright, so I just asked him to go turn that off. And you know what? I did forget to mention that actually during this time you had scheduled in Cynthia Wygren back east, but there was that blast of a storm, knocked out their power, trees came down. So she was unable to join us today. I just wanted to let our listeners know and the viewers out there that that's why she's not in at this slot at this time. But we get the opportunity to talk to Scott about these right whales.
Right,
And
I got an email from Cynthia a few minutes ago.
oh, you did?
She has a tree laying across her driveway, so she couldn't go to any place else to try and broadcast.
Oh my goodness. Well,
The power's out on Cape Cod anyway. We just got a notice from Woods Hole Oceanographic that programs that they had planned for the public today have been postponed because they're out of power down there too.
Wow. There was so much, quite the storm compared to here. We thought we were going to get that here, but luckily we haven't had that here. But
Right, we're getting 500-year storms every year now.
well, that's what I was going to say. A lot of these stories that we're hearing on our ocean symposium have to do with climate change. And as you said, we're getting 500-year storms every year now with climate change. So obviously it's affecting us, but what is going on out at the ocean, not only are we just learning about what life is like in the ocean for all the mammals and all the other life forms out there, but we're also learning how things have changed for them. Now I want to get back to the right whale for just a second. And I know I may have this wrong. Was the story about Moby Dick, was that a right whale or was that a different whale?
No, that was a sperm whale, and that was a true story. Anyone who's read Nathaniel Philbrook's book, In the Heart of the Sea, or seen the movie adaptation of that, which is directed by Ronnie Howard, who many of us affectionately know as Opie, from the Andy Griffith Show. He actually did a wonderful presentation of that movie. That was a true story. There was a large enraged male, very light colored, they called it white, whale that finally had enough and sunk one of the whaling ships. And the survivors, there were only a few, were floating in lifeboats for a long time. So then a couple of them were finally rescued. And then one told the story many years later to a young Herman Melville, who said that he was going to turn it into an historical novel, fiction. He didn't put all the details in and changed it a bit into the masterpiece Moby Dick that we know now. But that was based on a true account, true story that actually happened.
You know,
That was a sperm whale, not a right whale.
okay. Well, you mentioned an enraged whale. So do we have angry mammals out there in the ocean? Today,
Well, they have a culture, and sperm whales travel in distinct groups, and you had humans coming by harpooning them and harpooning mothers to get to the calves, and this one male sperm whale just had enough apparently and went after the ship, the Essex, and sunk it, and then the ship caught on fire.
Oh, did it? One thing that we learned too yesterday was that the dolphins in the San Francisco Bay had actually, been aggressive towards the porpoise. And that's something that I didn't understand that well until we heard about that. So do you know any more about that, Scott?
Well, just that Bill said that where these dolphins are coming up from in Southern California, harbor porpoise aren't common down there, aren't seen there at all. So they're moving up into this area, the bottlenose dolphins are, and they're encountering a smaller species of cetacean they're not familiar with. And it may be competition. If they are going up into the Pacific Northwest, the dolphins are, and Bill was saying they're feeding on salmon up there. That's something that the southern orcas, southern resident orcas don't need. There's more competition for salmon because with the dams and the fishing by humans up there as it is, the orcas are in pretty rough shape. We see a lot of skinny orcas and calves that aren't making it very long after birth.
So, Bill, I have a
About
question.
74 now.
Orcas and the salmon. So also the orcas like seals as well. So what determines what foods that they're desiring?
Who their parents are. The transients are the ones that move up and down the coast that we get a glimpse of every now and then along here as they're going by. Those are the red meat eaters, and they go after seals, whales, larger whales, calves. There's quite a bit of mortality of gray whale calves during the migration in the spring back up to when they go by here. But the biggest predation takes place in Monterey Bay that we know of, and further up and on Unimac Pass when they go through the Pribilofs into the Bering Sea. There are orcas up there that wait for them, know the timing and wait for them to come through there, the gray whales and the mothers and calves. So yeah, the transients are the red meat eaters, and they eat seals and other marine mammals. And there's indication, pretty good indication, they're also feeding on sea otters. In Jim Estes' book, Serendipity, Dr. Jim Estes was a mentor of mine, although he doesn't know it, for many years when I was working with sea otters and afterwards. And he did extensive study up in the around the Pribilof Islands with that population of sea otters, and showed that due to human activity, whaling, to be particular about it, it reduced the number of whales. So the orcas then switched to another food source in high numbers, which are pinnipeds and also unexpectedly sea otters. And the sea otter population in that area dropped. And that was due to predation because the orcas moved from the whales, which humans had reduced in such numbers that the orcas then switched to another food source. One other thing I wanted to mention from Sarah Grimes' talk about some of the pinnipeds being shot is a lot of that is based on the fallacy that the pinniped populations are exploding. They really aren't. They're under great pressure too with climate change and the lack of food. And Andrew Treitz up at the University of British Columbia has shown, and his team have shown that, and Helen Colleen talked about this the other day, with the warming of waters, you're getting a concentration of colder, rich waters in closer to shore and in other areas where it hasn't occurred before in such concentration. So marine mammals are following this nutritious food and showing up in places where we don't expect them or where they haven't been seen before. So the indication is they're just population explosion and they're showing up everywhere. Well, it's not necessarily that, it's more of a spreading out, looking for food sources and following the cold, rich waters.
And speaking of some of those food sources too, the Chinook salmon you were talking about earlier, and you mentioned dams. Are the dams are causing the population of the Chinook to lessen?
Well, a lot of these fish go up into rivers, and which they can't now get into, and they can't get out of, to lay their eggs and develop their young, and then they can't get back into the Pacific if they're already trapped up in there, or they can't get up in there in the first place. Even with those salmon ladders, it really restricts their ability to get in and out of the Pacific Ocean.
You know, you mentioned an interesting book, and there's also just recently Dr. Estes, but there's also a film that we understand you recommend that people can see, and I've forgotten the title.
Damming to Extinction.
Damned to Extinction, which
Yeah.
is a film about those issues exactly of the problems with the fish trying to spawn and trying to survive. So I just thought I would mention that because that is a film that's available on, I believe you can rent it on YouTube.
No,
or,
it's actually on their website, damtoextinction.com, and you can rent it there.
Great. And those are, to learn more about this, which has been going on a long time, and the whole thing about there's so, I can't think of any way to put this other than, dams just really don't do the job that everybody thought they would. They cost a lot of money to build, and they give us very little in return.
And Peggy, they have had some success up there. They have taken one dam down.
I heard
up
about
in,
that.
up in the Pacific Northwest. Yeah. And so that has changed, as Scott is saying, bringing those Chinook salmon up into the river and then able to go back to the ocean as their little ones.
Absolutely. That's a good point, because it seems like everyone loves salmon. I mean, not only the seals and the orcas, bears, Native Americans, we all love the salmon. So they must be one of the most, it's amazing that they still have survived all of these centuries with all of us out trying to eat them.
Howard Garrett calls them the dams.
Yeah, the dams. Exactly.
Yeah, I would encourage everyone to try to get a hold of that film, Damned to Extinction. A lot of great interviews in it from farmers who lived in the area, Native Americans who grew up in that area, which is now flooded. They'll point out where they used to play and fish and where they used to have farms and land, and that's all gone now.
We can even play a few minutes of it right now if you all would like.
Sure.
All right.
Howard would love that. Howard Garrett put this film together and was really encouraging us to show the whole thing today, but because of copyright and so forth, we decided not to. So you can show a little bit of it, yeah.
Yeah, we'll share a little bit and encourage people to go to Damned into Extinction?
Damned to Extinction.
Well,
Damned to Extinction.
I am actually having a little bit of an issue with the computer right now. As a matter of fact, I don't know why it is not.
I'll kick it.
Let me see if I can restart.
Ponzi with it.
Yeah.
Let's see here if this will start it. Nope, it went away. Unfortunately, I don't know. You guys keep talking and I'll see if I can't get it going here.
Sure.
So Scott, you were talking about the North and the Atlantic right whales, the North and Atlantic right whales. So huge population difference you were saying. Can you kind of explain a little bit about the Pacific versus the Atlantic?
Well, both populations were exploited heavily. The whale got its name, the right whale, because they were the right whale to go kill. They're very, very slow moving. Because of that extra thick blubber layer, which melts into more barrels of oil, they also tended to float when dead. So when they sunk, it didn't take the ship down with them. They would actually float. And as I mentioned, they melted into extra barrels of oil. So they were the right whale to go look for and the right whale to hunt.
Well, as you can tell, it sort of the video started as you were talking.
But as Scott, just to reiterate, Scott said these were the right whales to kill because they were slow moving and easier to catch. Okay, we're going to show and listen to a few minutes of this film and encourage you to find it at Damned to Extinction.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and start to play this, and then we'll be back on the other side This is KGUA in Wallala, 88.3 FM. And this is the Ocean Life Symposium, the third annual Ocean Life Symposium. And this is Damned to Extinction, written by Stephen Hawley.
And we are seeing wonderful scenes of salmon swimming upriver. We have dolphins and we have whales. This music ballet of this gorgeous orcas, which are gigantic. Damned to Extinction.
Here we
You're hearing
go.
the music. This new film by Howie Garrett.
The whales are 8 to 10,000 pounds. They're big animals. They're as big as elephants. You really get the impact that they're the king of beasts in that water world when you see things like them swimming 25 knots, faster than your boat can go, or throwing themselves 18 feet in the air, they're remarkable. It was apparent to other people, not so apparent to me, that I was kind of obsessed with whale stuff. Oh, my first photographs are 1963. That's when I got a 35 millimeter camera and started shooting pictures. My introduction to Orca Survey, or the Killer Whale Photo ID program, came through Dr. Mike Bigg in Canada. I had heard of him since the early 1970s as being somebody that allegedly knew every individual whale in the Pacific Northwest, and most people didn't believe him. And I can't say that I was necessarily a believer, but I wasn't a disbeliever. By the dorsal fin, size, shape, whether or not it has any nicks, and the saddle pattern, the gray area on the side behind the fin, we can go back 40 years and show you unequivocally the same whale. In 1976,
We're going to end it right there because we did try to share this for our YouTube viewers, but for some reason, and maybe it's the way it's copywritten too, it does not show up on YouTube. So that is a great, though, movie to watch by Howie Garrett, a documentary on the website is doomedtoextinction.com.
Right. And you did hear a little bit of Howie Garrett's voice on there, and you saw a little bit of ideas about identifying, which we have learned so much over the years from Scott and Tree and so many of our volunteer whale and seal watchers is, the one thing that we've been seeing repeatedly, Scott, throughout this time is that almost everybody has some sort of scar from whether it's from an orca or for some other thing that's tried to eat it. Everyone is marked. I did have a question. Sara Bogard showed the sea lion was numbers on it. Now, is that a scientific reason that they have the numbers on that, or was that? Do you know what that means?
Are you a little distorted during the most important part of your question? I didn't catch. You saw numbers on.
That's when Sara Bogard was showing the sea lions, and she had some that looked like the numbers were cut into the seal's fur.
Almost like a brand.
On some of the larger seals, like elephant seals, numbers are often placed on them just so they can be visually, it's like a big tag, similar to branding cattle. It's a large tag that they can see from a distance, not have to keep, in the case of elephant seals, risking their lives walking up to them constantly to identify them. It was the same with the smaller animals too. You can look with binoculars and see the numbers on them, and it's a visual tag is all it is.
Were they actually branded?
No, I said it like you do with cattle, but no, they're not branded. It's just putting a mark on them.
Okay, I was just curious about that. There was a elephant seal in Bodega Bay one year when we were living at Portuguese Beach, and it was molting, shedding its old skin.
Yeah,
it looked like it was hurt because it looked like it was bleeding. Anyway, it was a really angry elephant seal, and you didn't dare get anywhere within 20 feet of it because they are fast. And that guy stuck around for about 3 weeks in the sand dunes at Portuguese Beach. Huge,
Yeah,
huge.
they are big. The big males are about the size of Cadillac Eldorados, and they can move.
Yes, they-
And it's not a good idea to approach them standing up tall, because that's the way another male elephant seal approaches them to do battle.
Oh,
They're
really?
so big, the top part of their body, that when they're up off their chest, it could be 6 or 7 feet high or 6 feet high. And if you approach them that way, that's the visual image they have of another male coming at them. I just wanted to mention that voice that people heard. That was Ken Balcomb's voice. He's Howard's brother. And Ken Balcomb has done the most groundbreaking work on orcas, following Mike Biggs' work and continuing on with John Ford's work. Tremendous work with many different species of whales, but especially dedicating his life to the dwindling the orcas' southern residents. So many names here. Southern residents, yeah. So that was Ken Balcomb's voice.
Well, great. So Scott, you and Tree have worked so hard to help all of our crew here get these all your guests lined up. How are you feeling so far about the information we're sharing?
Well, still just water in this cup, but these 500-year storms, the one that blew, the big one that blew through here on the weekend, caused 2 of our speakers to pre-record. Then we lost Cynthia today because of 90-mile-an-hour winds going through Cape Cod and up through where we live now, I guess. It's just a tremendously huge superstorm now going through the Northeast. And so we were joking this morning here in the studio that we should do a symposium on climate change and then say symposium canceled due to climate change. The way things are going here with, 2 years ago, I'll go through this on Friday, but 2 years ago, we almost had to cancel our first symposium, which was in person in Mendocino.
Oh, that's
And
right.
An hour after we ended, PG&E shut the power off for the next 96 hours. And we just squeaked through that. And then last year, what happened last year?
Pandemic.
Yeah,
Pandemic.
it was COVID. There was what happened last year?
We did the second annual
We did the
Ocean
second
Life
annual here,
Symposium
but we were
here for
worried
the
about
first
fires.
time.
There was smoke everywhere.
Oh, there were fires.
Power shut off last year, so it's getting a little hairy. Planning these in October.
So
And
let me-
I wanted to say too, talking about power going off, it was, I don't know what affected up in Little River, but Sarah Grimes, she was on her backup battery box until her husband got her generator going. So halfway through, we finally saw the light come back on her face and the beeping stop in the background.
Yeah, I'm not sure I fully answered Paul's question about right whales. I got going about how they got their name, but do you remember the rest of the question?
That'll be good too. And also then we can talk about what the speakers are, who the speakers are coming up tomorrow too.
But
in the
before we
last
get
few
there, can I
minutes.
ask you what Cynthia was going to be talking about?
Oh, yes, that's good.
Our speaker that we're missing today.
Well,
because of,
Cynthia was a student of mine at the University of New Hampshire when I taught a marine mammal class there. One of the semesters, she was a student. And then she worked on the whale watch boat, on my whale watch program too, for at least one summer, maybe 2. And then she went off and started a Atlantic great white shark research program down in Cape Cod. And actually, the great white shark showed up in Cape Cod in big numbers right in that area. And she was going to talk about her program and how she works with other groups, including the state of Massachusetts. And let's see, she was working with that group OSearch that actually tags great white sharks, and then with radio tags, and then follows or satellite tags, and then follows their movement up and down the East Coast. So she was going to talk about her program, the Atlantic White Shark, Atlantic White Conservancy, Atlantic White Shark Conservancy. I thought the word research was in there, but it's Atlantic White Shark Conservancy. So she's one I'm very proud of. She has done a tremendous job with public awareness. In fact, last year we had Mary Ann Long on here, Cindy's education director. And you showing me that for a reason? Okay, Tresia is showing me a very depressing photo of an entangled right whale with baleen sticking out of its mouth. And ropes all around its head. Yeah, I forget what Paul was asking me, but
Yeah, Scott, what I was asking, you have the Pacific and the Atlantic right whales. So what is the population difference? I was starting to get the impression that the Pacific population is quite small compared to the Atlantic population.
well, it's in the dozens, and the Atlantic population is 300 and we think now about 333 or so, 336. And of that group, only about 100 North Atlantic right whales are probably viable females. And some of the females, 80%, more than 80% of the right whales show scars of entanglement. And when a female right whale gets entangled, it takes so much out of their body that they skip the next reproductive cycle, which cuts down on the number of calves. It's as tough on them as being pregnant to have this gear on them, if they even survive having the gear on them. So the population there is in tough shape. And the answer really is to avoid the ship strikes. I know a lot of ships are purposely slowing down in areas where they think right whales are, and also to solve the entanglement problem. And tomorrow, Rich is on tomorrow.
Mhm.
Yeah, Zach Cliver and Rich Riles will be on tomorrow. Rich has developed the ropeless gear, and he'll be describing that to people who are very curious about it. And he'll be introduced by our friend Zach Cliver, who's been out in Maine this summer, working with lobstermen off the coast of Kennebunk, Maine, testing the gear, which has been successful each time they've tested it.
So Scott, the entanglement issue with the whales, so it stops their reproduction, or they just explain how it changes the reproduction system as far as not.
The animals become so stressed from hauling gear for however long it takes to either shed the gear or be freed of the gear, that for females, it physiologically takes as much out of them as having had a calf and then taking care of the calf for a year. So they're not in shape to become pregnant and successfully raise a calf. So they skip a year, and right whales, females generally just have a calf once every 3 years as it is. So if they skip a cycle, then it's really difficult. So there's a mathematical projection right now that shows that North Atlantic right whales could become extinct in less than 20 years because there are so few females left in the population of 300 and something left.
So
330 or
both
so.
Pacific and Atlantic, is the reproduction timeline the same, the 3-year period?
Yeah, I believe it is. There's so little known about these North Pacific right now. Michael Stalker mentioned the Southern Hemisphere right whales, which are found off of Chile and so forth. And Roger Payne, who is famous for recording the first humpback whale songs, has been studying the southern right whales now for quite a while, several decades. And as Michael pointed out, that population down there is in the thousands. And the reason for that is they don't have the amount of stressors. There isn't as much pollution, there isn't as much noise in the ocean, and they're not being hit by big ships, and they don't have the entanglement issues either in that area. So the southern right whales, Southern Hemisphere right whales, are up in the thousands and recovering fairly well. The gray whales here on this coast were the model that everybody was hoping would show that the North Atlantic right whale could also recover, because gray whales here were hunted to such low numbers. The population has sprung up into the 20,000s a couple of times, but that hasn't happened with the North Atlantic right whale.
So it sounds
And
like
also, we're getting into inbreeding issues now, which is not healthy, as we all know.
so the entanglements in the northern hemisphere versus the southern hemisphere has a huge impact on the reproduction and birth rates.
Yeah, they don't have the stressors down there in the south, southern hemisphere that the North Atlantic right whales. North Atlantic right whales. My friend Scott Krause from the New England Aquarium wrote a book a few years ago, along with his wife, calling it the urban whale, because the North Atlantic right whales go right up running a gauntlet. And Michael Stalker was showing yesterday, and another gauntlet coming of wind farms. And, we're all wanting to get off fossil fuel, but there are issues too with some of the other our demands for fuel. Even
Boy, there's just the it's like, which devil you're going to choose? You're going to choose, the petroleum, or you're going to go with lithium batteries, which are destroying water all over the world. So, and killing wildlife. I mean, it's a tough choice. It seems like a lot of the choices we're trying to improve and get away from fossil fuels, and we get to the wind turbines, and those are
Yeah.
killing the birds. They're also adding to the noise and the pollution in the ocean.
And
so
then
it's
we've
a
got the
tough one.
plastics. What
Ugh.
Helen Colleen was showing us yesterday,
Yeah.
the prey, the small prey even consuming microplastic and then that being consumed.
Yeah,
And
and
we
Sam
still don't know the
mentioned,
result.
the right whales have been moving in the North Atlantic out of the Gulf of Maine up into the Canadian Maritimes, but they are still passing through the Maine waters. Even the lobstermen there are saying they never see them. They don't see many because there aren't many left, but they are swimming through Maine waters, going after copepods. And in one of the photos we've seen this week, I think it was Jen Kennedy's yesterday, a shot of a copepod, which is the size of a grain of rice, if they're big, and it had plastic inside it.
Exactly.
So the right whales are eating 2,000 pounds or more a day of these copepods, if they can find them, and they have plastic in them.
Oh my goodness, Scott, we're going to have to bring it to an end right now. We're going to be talking to Scott and Tree on Friday. And also, I mean, we still got 2 more days to go of
We
this
do.
symposium. We thank you so much, Scott, for stepping in. And you are listening to KGUA in Walla, 88.3 FM. And before we go to our standard programming at noon, which is Q, either Lee or Paul is going to tell us who's on first tomorrow.
We're going to both tell you who's up tomorrow. The first person up is going to be Suzanne Russ with Los Angeles Times. She's going to talk to us about how America destroyed the Marshall Islands. And then we also have coming up from the International Monetary Fund, Ralph Chami. And what is he going to be telling us about?
Yeah,
there,
he's going to
Paul?
be talking about the natural health and well-being and how we can create a sustainable shared prosperity.
And then right after that, to close out tomorrow, it's going to be talking about addressing marine life entanglements again in Dungeness crab gear, a fisher management perspective. And that's Victoria Knorr with the Washington State Department of Fish and Wildlife. And that brings us right up to the hour of noon, everyone. So we're going to say goodbye to our YouTube viewers there, and also to our yes, and to goodbye to Scott. Thank you, Paul Mundy, for being a host, Peggy Berryhill, and I'm Leanne Lindsay. And this has been the third day of the